Welcome to the show. This is like the Brady Bunch. Oh, no, they have 9. But this is all right. This is pretty good. I like what we've got here. And I'm Andreas Xirtus. And welcome to Wednesday Ultra, a woo variant that is taking over right now. And then there's Mr. Douglas, Mark, my family thinks I'm crazy, Seth from Venice Beach Dub Club, Giants here, and then a new friend, Luke. How's it all doing, guys? How you guys doing?
How's it going, guys?
I love being here. This is awesome.
Man, so I do this thing where I just jump into stuff. I'm gonna try something weird, just like a little off. I'm gonna just ask you guys first. How y'all do? Like, what have you been doing this week? What's the crazy stuff that you've been up to? What's the weirdest thing you remember?
I like that question. I'll go first because maybe icebreakers are tough. I know how that feels. I've been good. I just put out my 200th episode of the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast. It's an hour episode.
Bro.
Thank you. And Xirtus was my closer. He closed the grand finale of the whole episode, which was great because that weird thing happened with Dugan. And we talked about Dugan in that episode, and I used like a Dugan clip that I found on YouTube. So yeah, just, flowing and happy to be here with you all. And yeah, Luke is my buddy. He's got a podcast called Upside Down World, and I thought I'd invite him on. He's a comic, he's a journalist, he's an author, he's an all-around interesting guy.
Oh my God, Donut's trying to get in, but I don't have an unlocked StreamYard allowing me to have not like more than 6 people.
Oh God.
So
I can get. Can you hear?
What if we do a puppet thing? Have you ever how do you get across a bridge if you're overweight? You juggle, I think is the riddle. I'm gonna just 1 second, and then hey, you say hi, and then I'm gonna pull Luke back in. It's gonna be brilliant.
Hello. Oh, I'm sorry.
What's your story, Donut?
Hello. I am a researcher on the Illuminati news.
Oh, there you go. That's pretty good.
Awesome.
Do you have a most weird story this week that you were thinking of?
Right, Andrew Tate. Tate's so hot right now.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help because we were talking about Sharon Tate on the Think Tank, and then all of a sudden, I know it's not the same Tate, but you have to imagine, like, that's not a lucky name at this point, It just seems like bad stuff happens.
Yes, we were talking
about that. Yeah, but you're limited to 6. We could always just invite Donut or Luke back next week. I mean,
if you guys want to do that, or if you guys want to raise your hands and juggle, it's really up to you.
I asked super last minute, so I'd hate to break up.
How about I just stay on for 5 minutes and then I leave because that'll be good.
There you go. Okay, blast us. Tell us what you got. What have you been seeing? Because Illuminati news.
So Andrew Tate, right? Hot topic, hot news right now, and he's always doing the Illuminati hand sign that we see, which looks like a woman's body part when you do this. And he's known as the top G. In the top G, the G goes into secret societies and Freemasonry or whatever. His connections to, gambling, mafia, he's very open about it. But how did he rise to power so quickly? Kevin Samuels just recently mysteriously died from some kind of heart failure. Well, if you look at the CIA stuff, heart guns are real, and that's something that they can do is give someone a heart attack. So right after Kevin Samuels died, there was a vacuum for kind of this red pill stuff. And then Andrew Tate really was promoted by really big channels. So it's just very interesting with his name Tate, Sharon Tate. He was part of reality TV, which is the simulacrum. Reality TV is for us to imitate, right? So his name's Tate, to imitate that.
Yeah.
So a lot of questions for that guy right there.
Wow. I mean, man, that's going to be, I'm going to have to get you on the sync tank too, to do some sync stuff. Sounds like you're into syncing. That's important. Synchronicity.
Like synchronicity?
We do a think tank for synchronicity as well. That's just kind of all about that. But so in terms of Tate, I mean, what I heard was he's doing a bunch of misogyny. He's this orange man batting his Twitter and TikTok. Is that true? Is that all it is? They're upset at him because he was a misogynist? Or is there some sort of a philosophical, political thing behind it that's more? Is there more?
Sure. So this is what I'm at right now is he says a lot of good stuff, right? He talks about the Matrix. He talks some truth to the beta soy and social engineered men that have been lied to, like the Gen Zs and all that for a long time. So he speaks a lot of true stuff, but him being banned is going to make him more popular. Alex Jones just got banned, right? And he became even richer. He made more money during that. You ban something, they're saying they don't want kids to know about this, right? Well, once you put that parental advisory sticker on the CD, all the kids are going to buy it.
Interesting point. Yeah, so he's going to become a more famous character. What about the future for, I mean, like everything is being closed down. He's not going to be able to be on these intranet networks and services. How are the kids supposed to find him if he's not on YouTube and TikTok?
Well, he has a 3-step plan, and being banned was part of it. So he has a 3-step where he wanted to go viral, which was all on other people's accounts, not even on his own account. And that makes me even question that, because in secret societies, you got 3 steps of initiation into the Blue Lodge. So he's using these terms. So just something I've been looking into. And the only reason I'm looking into it is because everybody in the world, not on the internet, is talking about it. So I know that there's a heavy influence in this right now. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm gonna have to look into his connections to Freemasonry. Obviously, you know, when you look into sports and sports stars, it gets pretty convoluted there between the brethren and the lodges. So I don't know if there's Mark. Do you have any specific else you wanted to bring up before?
I just love that we're featuring some of my friends briefly. Donut's awesome, and I love podcasting with him. And I think, you know, you should definitely do a show with him.
Yeah, I'm definitely Donut. If you're down, I'm sorry about the haphazardness of this. We will get you back into a dual.
I would love it.
That was some cool knowledge you dropped, man. That's very fascinating stuff to chew on. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Dude.
Yeah,
Dude.
we'll come back on anytime. Just let me know.
Well, also let our audience know where they can find your content in the interim.
You can find me at Donut, DOENUT.
Donut Factory on YouTube, right?
Right.
Epic. DOENUT Factory on YouTube. All right, take care, man. I'm gonna pull in Luke. See you next time.
Thank you, Donut. Thank you, Donut.
Wow, this is crazy. This is full on Johnny Carson talk show now. There's like a couch. People are sliding in and out on the couch.
This
is amazing. I like where this goes.
Yes. Happy Wednesday night, everybody. Welcome to late night. Yeah.
All right, Luke. What about you? What do you got for us?
Is my mic going? Can you hear it right now?
Oh yeah, you sound great.
Oh, thank God.
Back behind there though, you're like Ross Perot, you know, just like completely silent. They weren't allowed. Your mic was cut.
Penalty box.
It was brutal.
So I don't have any hard-hitting current things going on right now. I mean, I am following kind of the Andrew Tate situation, not to the same lengths that our friend Donut is, but I don't know if I'm at that same level where I think he's controlled opposition. Like I don't know. I've seen him on Alex Jones's show promoting products, and I wouldn't say Alex Jones got richer getting banned off of all of those networks. I think he actually took a big hit, and his finances are actually like in ruin. He just claimed bankruptcy. So I don't know. Like I have a really tough time seeing that side of it. Not to say that Donut's wrong, but I'm not at that same level where I'm thinking that he's controlled.
Yeah, it's really hard to like acknowledge that there's so many people in media that aren't just living in infamy for their own protection after exiting the CIA. That there are a lot of just grifters. There really are. There's a lot of grifters out there. And, you know, I don't know for sure because he might be all these other things, but a lot of the time, hey, you got a YouTube channel that's telling dudes how to pick up chicks and you're kind of successful. It's very much like an Evian commercial, you know, like maybe Maybelline, you know, it's not just his ideology. It is the fact that he's not like a particularly handsome guy or something like that. So, I mean, maybe a mind control pattern and technique.
It's interesting to point out that he was born in Chicago, raised in England, and is a master chess player. Like that's
his dad was CIA. His dad was CIA.
Yeah, that would put you in a world of MK Ultra, possibly. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that.
Sorry, that wasn't a gratuitous.
That opens a lot of different doors for sure. Yeah.
His dad was a high level chess master / in the CIA. So you know what? Maybe I take back what I said. Maybe he is controlled up. Who the fuck?
I mean, you never know. You never know. That's all I'm saying.
If your dad
it's
is
a lot more
former
plausible.
CIA, if your father's former CIA, either you are CIA or you're against the CIA. You're not just randomly a guy who gets famous with no thought about the CIA.
You have an opinion.
It's one or the other.
Right,
I like that.
I hadn't heard of him until just now. I looked him up and found that little information out. But yeah, it's certainly interesting to see.
The one thing I do agree with him and all is that the future will be the yachts and the have-nots. I do agree with him on that. I think that's what the ruling elite truly have in store for middle class and lower class victims at this point. I mean, you see what they're doing now. It's just like, to enter, you need this. And if you don't do this, well, then go fuck yourself. And not only are you not allowed in, but we're going to ridicule you, publicly humiliate people. So he is right about that, I think.
Man, and then there's also, so one of the things that kind of blew my mind was, if you remember this last week, Dennis Rodman also, like, because everyone has their feelings about Dennis Rodman in the CIA. I think, who was it? It was Michael Knowles posted. Does everybody agree that Dennis Rodman is in the CIA? I mean, or some sort of because he said he's going to go to try to get that girl out of.
And then he quickly turned around and was like, "Oh, whoops, never mind."
Well, it wasn't too quick. It was legitimately like, and as Mark, we were saying,
like,
it was right after the Dugan murder.
So
I mean,
the timing line.
Let me see if I can find.
I think if Rodman was in the CIA, he could have made it all the way through Celebrity Apprentice. He had to bow out after like 2 episodes to get out of bed. So that doesn't reflect like that great CIA training. They can take a lot.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
Legit.
It's interesting that he was going to go there, and he's done this stuff with North Korea and everything else, but he was going to go try to free her. And then, right after Daria Dugina was murdered, Platonova, they're saying, hey, Dennis Rodman reverses courses, won't go to Russia to seek. What do you guys think? Do you think it literally is just that Russia's going to get more locked down after the car bombing incident, or is this, why is he not going?
Probably he didn't receive Putin isn't like desperate for like any American celebrity to come over. I'm sure when Kim Jong-un is like, oh my God, an NBA player likes me. He got like rolled out the red
cameras. Yes.
5-star hotel, everything. For Putin, he's like, I could take it or leave it with Dennis Rodman. So he's like, oh, I did this once before and I got treated really nice. This time doesn't seem as fun. So I just don't want to do it anymore. Because like I said, he's a pretty sleepy guy. I think he literally says he sleeps something like 20 hours a day.
I don't know if I've heard he's a complete degenerate. Like, he shows up everywhere drunk. Like, he's literally just
like
a slob.
Jim Morrison. Yeah.
I just shows up to Russia just hammer drunk. I mean, I don't think that'd be the best look.
Where's Brittany? Where is she?
Let her out, you fucker.
I play in the NBA. You hand her over.
My God. I mean, but so what's his goal? Did the CIA think that they can? What are they trying to do? Are they think that they're going to get her out of Russia? Is also going to what's the trade here?
I don't think we have bargaining chips with Russia right now.
Right? Yeah.
Like we tried to ultra sanction them. We tried to ultra sanction them, and it didn't work. So then they're like, all right, we're just going to sell all of our oil into Europe. And by the way, we have a coalition with like literally all the largest nations on earth, like India, Brazil, and China. So it's like, you guys do your thing, we're going to do our thing. And then we're like, can we have our WNBA lady back? And they're just like, no. And I think
what was that? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
They're like, and if you send Rodman, we might keep Rodman too, because guess who's bringing drugs to Russia when he goes? Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a question.
Like his imports, yes.
What do you think about the Putin being a young global elite attendee?
A WEF man?
Yeah, I mean,
what
that's
does that
something.
have to do on the?
I have a take on that. My take is like, you get invited to these conferences, and then whether you know it or not, they put you on their webpage, and now you're like, you're a young global elite, and you're like, wait a minute, you just invited me and you said it was gonna be a nice weekend. I could go hang out at the pool, then I had to give a 1-hour speech. Now all of a sudden I've been like roped in with like Angela Merkel, and like I didn't want to be in this group. So you have to be careful what kind of goodies and invites you accept. It could be part of it, or he could just be a total snake. Like if you ask me about Dan Crenshaw, it's like same thing. He seems like the kind of guy that would go to any convention that would have him, because he's like a networking, like ladder climbing guy. So that's how you get roped into all these things. You don't know when you go there that later people are on the internet are going to be like, everyone who's associated with these young global leaders is like a, Illuminati stooge Renfield. So you got to be careful.
Yeah. Probably when they went like 15, 20 years ago, they weren't like, oh, these people are going to close down the entire world and start injecting people with fucking poison. So now it's a bad look, but back then,
I'm not a communist, DA. Wait a minute.
Well, I mean, so if there's also, I mean, I just feel like it's so blatant in our face. Is that true, or it just seems ridiculous? I mean, why are they using people that are so famous and so old? Like, they've had his face has been used in so many general dictator. Does it seem like the thing is just collapsing? Like they're just bad at it now, or are we missing something here? Is Dennis Rodman really just some sort of super genius?
I literally just think he could.
I tried to keep a straight face.
Sorry.
I think he thought he could recreate the magic, like the North Korea magic. He's like, this is going to be even bigger and better than my last single.
So he's just
But
David
sometimes you
Hasselhoff.
only have one
Okay.
hit single, and that's it. The next one doesn't go over, you know.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like a Sean Penn
makes a lot of
Hasselhoff
sense.
kind of thing. I
Yes,
can see that.
yeah.
Oh,
One
go
more
ahead.
time, guys.
He's like, hey,
No, go ahead.
I'm good at this.
Go ahead, because I think and also in terms of Putin's connection to the WEF, because I was going to pull up the Bilderberg article, but yeah, keep going. Sorry.
I was just going to tie into Dennis Rodman, and I was just going to say I think a lot of these athletes secretly know what's going on. I don't know, just as a whole. That was a side note.
Just not Tate. Okay.
I trained with a guy who was a #1 draft pick to the NHL in 1987. You can look up this guy. Now he lives in a bush in Calgary, and he's homeless. But back when we were in the sauna, sweating it out, doing push-ups, he would mention playing for the Chicago Blackhawks and being invited to islands and stuff. And back then, this was like 7 years ago. My cousin and I would work out with this guy, and we thought he was fucking nuts.
Right.
Well, and then I start finding out that this whole island thing isn't that crazy after all. After I have lost touch with this guy completely, and this guy actually got convicted of like underage stuff. So
Wow.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Brutal. Oh man. Also, Jordan in Canada, who I didn't know was going to make it, has also just showed up. So Luke, it's going to be about your time on the couch. This is so Johnny Carson. I'm amazed at what's going on here. But
Thank you, Luke.
Luke, tell us where we can get some of your content and when we're going to see you next. Are you going to be able to be in the next week or two if you want to come back, and we'll set something up also?
Oh, absolutely. Come on my podcast, the Upside Down World with Luke Mitchell, weekly episodes Monday, and we're talking about depopulation next episode. So it should be a doozy. Yeah.
All right, guys, I'll have that link by the end of this put down there. Mark's going to help make sure I do. Luke, fabulous. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Hey, Luke.
Thank you, brother.
And Jordan, what's up, Jordan? He made it. How's it going?
Hello, Jordan.
Jordan, the Divulgence podcast, here to join us today from Canada, sunny Canada, with the sunny, warm beaches of Canada. So, how are you doing? How you doing right now?
Good, man. Good. How are you guys doing? Nice to see everyone.
Happy Wednesday.
I haven't met you guys, but great to be here. And no, things are good, man. Nice to be here, and nice to have some friendly faces to chat with.
Jordan's coming up on the first year of his new he's got a Divulgence podcast, which is sharing all kinds of interesting stuff. We did an interesting thing on Maxwell, September 11th. There's all kinds of stuff he covers. I'm bringing you in as we start our conversation about Bilderberg 2022, back from the lockdown part 1, the shadow governments reemerges, which is the new sequel to the Amazon Lord of the Rings. No, but the idea here is that in 2021, there was actually no Bilderberg, which is kind of a misnomer. There really was online Zoom meetings.
Are you guys there? Can you see me? Is my mic open? Hello?
Yeah,
I said we have to kill them. Hello?
They had, do you remember like the lawyer who was doing a Zoom court meeting and the cat emoji face came over him on a filter? And they didn't know how to turn it off. They knew everything about law. They didn't know how to turn it off. And he's like, they do the rest of the court case with a cat
So
as the attorney.
He
So
said
good. Thank you, God.
First time since ancient Egypt, they were able to pull it off. But so in 2021, they didn't have a real meeting. They did some Zoom stuff. And now they're saying, hey, Bilderberg is back on the table. And we have so much to discuss, right? I mean, because COVID it's a serious issue. We're going to have to talk at some point about the new Arabian conspiracies about the vaccine, because Facebook has been criticized for failing to curb misinformation in English, but little attention has been paid to the scale of the problem in Arabic. That's right. They're coming after your Arabic truths and thoughts as well. So I'll go back to that. But where's I've already lost it. What have I done? Bilderberg. There we go. Okay. Bilderberg meeting. Why I bring this up amongst all the other interesting things, because of course they're bringing in lots of new COVID experts that are going to know exactly how to help us. And Canada's Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, issued a meeting, to join the thing. There's actually a map I saw somewhere. There it is. Okay. So purple section of this pie, purple are first-time participants. The steering committee is literally doubled by the first-time participants. There's also the former steering committee, which imagine what that means, right? Because this means there's a shift going on. And then there's regular participants, as in these guys were members who were neutral, who were following the steering committee, but they've literally been tripled by the new steering committee over the last few years. Ever since Bilderberg's become fully public that it exists and everything else, and they're trying to accept also nationality of participants, huge amount of Americans that are joining, and there's significantly more Dutch than you might expect. So whatever you think about that, but yeah, what do you guys think about Bilderberg and what's going on?
There are two things that I hate: hypocrites and the Dutch.
I think it's interesting they have, you know, many more participants from the United States this year, and the Dutch as well. It seems like wherever they're shutting down all the farms, like you need a lot of representation. At
Interesting, right?
And just to tag on to that point quickly, I would like to get a leaker from the caterers and make sure that they're eating only bugs.
Yeah, right. That'll be it.
I want to hear the crunches for kilometers. Yeah.
What's the Nicole Kidman physique thing? I feel like it's almost it's so early for a segue, but we're gonna go back to the Bilderberg. But let's just remember that, you know, the physique of Nicole Kidman, and remember she's been eating bugs, and then she says it's only bugs.
An exoskeleton,
dude. And what were we saying happens when you eat bugs? Like, what could happen? Would it change you? Would it change you somehow?
Armor.
And I was thinking about your DNA. I didn't even think about the hormones. Like, this is just
what? Like, this looks good. This looks good. Somebody took that picture and showed it to her, and she was like,
"As a bug, I don't have to think about pooping when I need
crazy.
To. It just happens."
Dude, and that crazy.
And I have 2 haircuts at once.
And the crazy haircut. Honestly, it's like I don't know how I can. It's kind of MK Ultra. It's kind of like a squid.
What did your shirt say? What's on her shirt there? It looks like some like Korean shampoo like logo or something.
But yeah, after late, FPY. I don't know, man.
After late, that's very end times. You know, like we're like a post death of the universe. Here's Nicole.
Oh yeah.
So have you guys heard that? Do you know what chitin is?
Dead in translation.
There's something in the exoskeleton of bugs called chitin, which is apparently like a super gluten. That's how Alex Jones described it. I don't know if that's a scientific term.
Good for plants.
Super gluten. It'll shut down your entire digestive system.
Oh, okay.
Like
chitin, like C. Oh, there we go.
CH.
Where'd it go? I just had it a second ago and it disappeared.
So it's pronounced chitin. I've always said chitin, but that makes sense. It's one T. That makes sense.
Chitin. No, not chitlins. It's chitin. No,
chitlins.
You could have chitin chitlins.
Yeah. And imagine
flavored chitlins, chitlin flavored chitins.
Wow. So it's an acetylglucosamine derivative, amide derivative of glucose. So it's a super
makes plants stronger.
Ooh. Okay, so it's a super starch sugar, and it's and it looks kind of like a bug. You know what I mean?
Wow, yeah, look at that.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Terrifying.
It's almost as if you shouldn't eat things that make you have a gag reflex just looking at them.
You are what you eat, right? And this is like a major. It's getting down to the point where bugs are what they eat. That's kind of crazy, man. All right, and they look like okay. So, okay, but Bilderberg, they want us to eat bugs. They already like lobster and shrimp. How far are we? The French, they couldn't get the language. They couldn't get people to speak French. They can't get the French language in people's mouths. How are they going to get snails?
Old world burn. Very nice.
I mean, but really, do you think it's going to be possible to?
No, I don't think it's going to be possible. I think they're shooting their wad way too early. I think that them prepping us is them thinking, all right, we've scared them. They think maybe we lock them down again. Maybe we take away their money or inflate a little bit more. I don't know. Let's push the bugs. I think it's time for the bugs. And, because there are a couple of they're all late stage, royalty out there in Europe. So the genetic line has been guided, let's say, in a particular direction to the point where probably they enjoy the bugs and they really I don't understand the wings. They're so tasty. It's like my popcorn. Who knows? But I don't think that they are in touch with the rhythm of the world as we are.
Imagine how hard it would be, Mr. Douglas, for them to find anyone who can give them insight into the minds of the average person because they're so exposed. It's like, who are they going to reach out to, as a consultant, like an everyman consultant? Because anyone who would want to associate with them is some kind of desperate climber. Like they could probably get like an Andrew Tate to tell them how young men think, but yeah, how are they really going to get insight?
I think you should stop thinking about young men.
Ultra. Right? But I know, I get your point. They are surrounded by sycophants, yes men, and brown nosers.
Insulated.
They are detached in a way. However, the internet.
What they don't want here. They don't want a divergence between cities and everyone else. It's not going to serve them well to just have one kind of people insulated and isolated in these cities, eating bugs, just killing themselves with toxins. It's gonna create a control group that's like the rest of humanity. So that's what they really don't want. This has to be an influence that spreads far and wide. It does them no good just to murder everyone in the cities that's predisposed to agree with them to begin with.
Right.
But how do they reach the people that readily go, I don't think so, yo?
I mean, I think you're right. They've kind of blown their wad and missed the opportunity to do so.
This map, though, it shows the amount of American government participators, and it's very Yankee centric. So I'd love to see some other examples of Britain, Canada, Holland, etc. But you can see during the neocon years through Obama, yes, these increase kind of, except for there are certain points where they've already succeeded in their point. They have like biannuals. It looks like you can actually see what years matter the least based on what years matter the most, right? So there's a 4-year quarterlies. And with following that trend, you can see that during the Trump years, there was a de-escalation for the most part until we reach a height that was pretty much the same as the 2003 invasion in Iraq period with the neocons. So that's the period where Trump's government officials are participating the most. And then there's just an extreme jump ever since they've taken over again. So what do you think this map says really about, the changes in the administration, or the coherency between the red and the blue, and why they call Trump green? What is this all about, guys? Is that some Keck reference?
Ooh.
I'm seeing midterm elections. When I'm looking at this, what I'm seeing that's interesting to me is there's a lot more participation by U.S. government officials during the midterm election build-up and year of than there is during national election years. That's what jumps out at me.
Yeah.
And the Biden jump is pretty significant too.
Yeah, just insane.
How hectic that power handover, quote unquote, was. So
it does go to show that the balance of the world is resting on what happens in the United States right now, which is extremely stressful if you're living in the United States, knowing that you're balanced on this knife's edge.
Yeah.
You can kind of feel it. You can feel it in the air. It's a very interesting
little tense
walking around. Yeah, there is
a little tense.
Yeah.
I wonder what it would look like if you compared this chart with the random number generator that spiked during 9/11. Because I'm looking at it, maybe I'm running the risk of being solipsistic, but when I look at this chart here, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, 2010 was pretty formative for me, albeit I'm only 27 at this point in my life, so that year for most people is going to be formative. But then again, everybody knows what happened in 2019 and since, but also like where it spikes in 2003 and 2006. I wonder if there's something in the collective consciousness that also parallels this.
Cool. I remember I graduated in 2006. Late 2005 was Katrina, right? And so 2006 was kind of also worldwide mariner, all these stories about pirates and dysfunctional Indonesia that needed to be, and these crises that started to happen in the Southeast Asian Pacific. I mean, all of those stories that started to appear, I associate with 2006.
What do you think about the whole lead up to the Trump era and including 2016, just almost no representation at all, except for a little bit in 2015?
Yeah.
What do you make of that? Is that an intentional blackout, or is that a lack of puppet strings allowed that to happen? Which came first, the chicken or the egg with that, do you think?
I mean, it definitely looks like go ahead.
I thought it was competing factions. Like maybe the Bush era cabal kind of like took the power away from whatever group was centered in the Bilderberg kind of thing, because you see it pretty regular up until Obama, and maybe that first term was what they needed to sort of manipulate it out of its place, and then it came back years later. But yeah, it seems like that's my instinct. It's like maybe it's a warring faction, and instead of meeting at the Bilderberg meeting, they all met at Bohemian Grove those years.
True. Yeah. I would love to know what percentage of the attendees are elected officials and which are the permanent state too.
Me too.
I think it correlates with internet like really booming, people starting to get their handhelds and looking into things like Bilderberg, Alex Jones exposing it a lot. Right. They felt more comfortable with the control over that they had with people. So they didn't want to show themselves as much. They wanted to dumb it all down and kind of hide for a second. And then they, wanted to create things after Trump started coming in and it started becoming more popular to look into all the conspiracy theories. Then they started ramping up, looking into people more and talking about what they're going to do about humanity waking up, probably.
That's a good option. Another good option is plausible deniability. Like if Trump was a controlled agent of Bilderberg, it might be a good idea to not have a whole bunch of, I don't know, there's a bunch of different
We
ways.
weren't even showing up then. What do you mean? He's not one of us.
Well, he did go speak at Bilderberg in, was it 2017? Is that it?
Spoke there. I went to speak there.
Or was it Davos that he spoke at? Did Trump ever speak at Bilderberg? I believe he did. I think he was an attendee in 2017.
Yeah, I think it's just correlating. I think that Trump is probably controlled opposition. It's just that it correlated at the same time. Like they used him to, fan the flames of something like as a reverse psychology, right? So they're like, okay, everybody's starting to get all this technology and they're talking and everything. Let's just give them what they want and pretend like we're going to fight ourselves.
Right? I think that's really the most interesting question that there is in the universe right now is what is Trump really? You know what I mean? I know people are sick of talking about him, but it's like, to me,
it's coming up
I see warring factions of Illuminati Masons. Like it's like Game of Thrones to me. It's like who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. It's like the good guys are the people getting blown up randomly by dragons. Like everybody with dragons and armies, they're all bad guys. But I don't want to hijack the show or anything, but just this one quick topic to see if any of these brilliant people in here have an insight into this. I think the most telling moment ever on TV ever was during March 2020, during those long COOF briefings. Trump had a featured artist he put on, Mike Pompeo, and he's like, Mike Pompeo, spit some facts on the mic, tell the people, bust a verse. And Mike Pompeo came out and he said right away, we're in the middle of a live drill exercise. And then Trump from off mic interrupted him because you should have told us. You should have told us. And what that was to me is he's saying you, he doesn't mean Mike Pompeo. He means your bosses, Mike Pompeo, should have told us. Your gang didn't tell our gang that you're going to do this. And it's very rude. You know what I mean? And when Trump was saying us, I don't think he meant me and the American people, but it just showed that there's like different groups like vying for control. And I think, what do you guys think about that?
Call?
Saying a little call. What up, call?
I think.
Yeah.
No, you go ahead.
I certainly think that we are in time when definitely we can start to spot these various agendas taking shots at trying to control the narrative. And yeah, it very well could have been just a straight up exchange like, hey, come on, I thought we were working together. You said on Wednesday. Like, yeah, it could very well have been.
That's how I read it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Godfather.
It's very interesting.
It's a historical moment. I mean, they were right there on live TV, and he's like, you should have told us that we're in and it's like, excuse me, we're in a live drill exercise. Why is my business closed?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
No shutdown. Yeah. Fuck.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Go for it. Anybody?
Well, I looked this up. I mean, it's a little unrelated. I also wanted to say that picture at the top of the article could be your next meme because that guy in the hoodie looked like you, Andreas. But either way, the first American Bilderberg meeting was in Williamsburg, which if you guys haven't been to Colonial Williamsburg before,
wow,
I haven't, but from what I understand, it's a augmented reality experience, right? So you go there and people are like playing the role of someone allegedly in that time period. So
it's immersive, and that's augmented. It's old school. It's old school.
Yeah, Mystic Poop, if you find this picture, you're allowed to.
She's actually shoveling horseshit. All right. I'm more in here now. Yeah.
But, that stood out to me because the College of William and Mary, which is one of the oldest colleges, it's disputed which one I think is the first one, but they're the first British college ever founded in the United States. So Harvard and Yale were earlier, but they weren't founded by the British proper. So the College of William and Mary is very interesting. I mean, came up in my Skull and Bones research because they have their own exclusive fraternities of the same reputation.
Do you know which William and Mary?
Well, it would probably be William Shakespeare and Queen Mary. Like Mary, right? So that would like Bloody Queen Mary. That would probably be, or William could be a different William. There's many Williams in
no, I think I agree with you. That's
history, but I think they're hinting at William Shakespeare. And it's not my research. People can look into Susquehanna alchemy. That's where I learned a lot of that stuff. My buddy Mike Wan. But yeah, it's interesting that the first Bilderberg meeting was there, and then the second one in the United States was in Woodstock, Vermont. Not Woodstock, New York, but Woodstock, Vermont, which Vermont has a sort of like Franco vibe going on there. A lot of people from France there.
Yeah, and a reputation for liberty, or libertarianism or something, like de-escalated government. So the irony is palpable.
Yeah.
I think when I think about the world powers fighting with each other, though, you think like Robert Anton Wilson talking about the mafia when they got into cocaine. Like there are the Catholic Church, which is in a place, and there's the people that make it up, and there's just so many levels of convolution. It's the same thing with the war in Iraq. That's why they had to have a war on terror, because if you have people that are non-state actors that are living in different places, I know, there's a lot of silliness to the war on terror, but there's a lot of seriousness, not Syria. Good. But just the idea of they're being nomadic, and this is even important for post-American industrial complex Soviet Union states, which are traded around like in card games, for certain dictatorships. So it makes sense to the extent that they're fighting with each other because they trade states, and then they have this power struggle over the state running the corporation that someone else has been in charge of.
Well, and think about that in terms of what I just said, like the Dutch, right? The Bilderberg started, the first meeting was there in Belgium, right? Or Deutschland. Yeah. So, but then they go to the British, like the Dutch were some of the first people to settle the New World. So don't you think maybe they feel a little slighted about not getting any of the, any action in the colonial days? I mean, the British got far more than they did. They got all of Canada, right? So, and the French kind of got a bunch of stuff too until they sold it to, Jackson, I think. But yeah, either way, there is maybe that going on where like history repeats itself because these factions are keeping track of like old losses and trying to make up for them.
The Netherlands, the Oosterbeek village where they had the
Netherlands, thank you, yes,
in the Netherlands, correct. And so that movie, what's that Wes Anderson
Grand
movie?
Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, that's the one. Grand Budapest Hotel, which is all about the Bilderberg Society, the secret keepers with their secret keys. Where's the key club?
Really?
About this? Yeah, where's the key?
I knew this movie was about something when I saw it. I was way too.
I had a feeling that something was off about that book.
And they've got a group of gentlemen that are like hotel concierge all over the world that connect this society of important people, like, and this is their symbol, the Grand Budapest Hotel. So I mean, there you go. The two hearts in the key, and
yeah,
the
their flag. Doesn't the flag have the keys, or is that like the Geneva flag or something? That's close by.
The Vatican has it. The original Seal of Solomon has this. John Dee used a symbol of two keys across. There's also this, I forget which hexagram, but there's a hexagram that's associated in the I Ching with the symbol that's on the key that they chose as well.
And it's like the crossbones, right?
So they just wouldn't stop.
The keys.
But it's about families arguing in World War I, essentially. And so the idea that there's a small group of people that decide the fate of so many, right?
What Giant just said even, has a double entendre in the sense that those are called skeleton keys. They're not just any key.
Yeah.
Right? So like
it also relates to the Jolly Roger, right? And the reason why the pirates use the skull and the crossbones, because it all symbolizes the same thing. Actually, I have family. My great-great-grandfather was John Rogers. He was the first one to be martyred by Bloody Mary. And the Rogers go back to the Rothgars. They were the original kings of
That's
the
why
North.
Roger is for rouge,
Yeah.
For red, for Roth.
Yeah.
And,
or it's a phallic symbol, right? It has to do with, the obelisk and all that stuff. But they were the original kings with the Rothgars.
Right. So and these were banking ships. Like the pirates wouldn't have a pirate flag. They would use somebody else's flag, of course. But the banking ships would have the key cross with the red skull, right?
Yeah, and they were at war with each other because, from my belief is that they were trying to take back lands and monies and stuff that had been stolen from them a long time ago by these secret society families that learned how to do the banking to manipulate and create wars and take over lands and everything. So, it goes back to an old fight. And the reason that Shakespeare and Mary are related, it was all during the same time. Shakespeare was not a real character, was them as the court trying to figure out how to educate and bring everybody under one language so that they can manipulate them. And then what Shakespeare did ended up becoming what we know as Hollywood, and Hollywoodized everything, the whole world, right? We all speak English, at least as a second language, and then we all have been Hollywoodized, right? Like a Californication, like Red Hot Chili Peppers talk about.
Yeah,
it's all interconnected.
Look what they've done, right?
Damn, giant drop in the heat, brother. That's deep stuff.
Yeah, it's all interconnected. And you start connecting all the dots back, every single one of these things. Entertainment. The reason that they put, Silicon Valley where they put it is they knew that was a place. It was the original Hollywood, actually, Silicon Valley, and it was the capital of California. And then they moved it to Sacramento to kind of take eyes off of it. And then they moved Hollywood down to Southern California to take eyes off of it, because it was the original place where they started radio and doing skits over the radio and all that stuff. And I think, Andreas, you have a family connection to like the radio side, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, if you go, first off, you go to Santa Cruz, like they still call that beach, the front beach that they land on, Capitola, because it's and Monterey, the capital. And Monterey was the capital because it was a bit safer inland slightly, and if you were, you still had the boats and everything were coming to the harbors there, but there were some people that had some wealth that they pushed it back a little east in order to stay a little safer. Not that far east, but like 10 miles or 20 miles was significant, from a boat or something like that. So they have that all along the coast. And then in Argentina, similarly, they have Knights of Malta families that were connected along the coast. And then they were involved in telegram systems and radio, which they built bringing into Russia, right? And Russia has the Pan-Pacific, right? The Pan-Pacific
Trans-Pacific Railroad. Yes.
No, I'm saying the wrong thing. It's not a railroad. It's a telegram. There you go. Sorry. The Trans-Pacific Telegram Line, which Peter the Great, I think, was the one who had installed. And it goes across, and there's all these interesting stories of indigenous tribes and villages who had their, cathedrals or mosques or whatever you call these weird buildings. They had elaborate buildings burnt down so that they could lay a cable and also discover places where supposedly there was already cable lit, which is a whole other thing. Because imagine in the 1800s how difficult it really was to lay cable across the freaking Atlantic, So, but I don't know if that was what you were getting at, Giant. But.
No, it's just all interconnected, because it seems to be what their theme is that they like to push progress. They're trying to go towards a certain goal, because their aspect of the duality is that they are associated with demons or things that have to be locked under, that have, some sort of understanding of technology and everything. Like the fallen angels were teaching all this technology to humanity and all this stuff. And then they got punished and sent underneath and all this stuff. And they've figured out how to get past the magical spells to get out, but they can't get everybody out, all their brethren or fallen angels. So
if Twitter just sent someone like you to explain that, I think people would be less offended that they were being, suppressed.
It's part of understanding.
They're an underrepresented minority. These fallen angels.
They've been around for a long time. They've got a really unique perspective. We should hear them out, okay, for a change.
Honestly, though, that explains. So that's why earlier I kind of brought this up, but I think maybe we should elaborate on it more because it's interesting. And hey, yeah, we all have English as a second language, but censorship, and I've noticed this too, when you put your videos out in other languages, they get censored less because they don't have the same triggers yet. Or maybe now this article means they're going to have the triggers figured out for so many other languages, but there's going to be subtlety that's going to be hard to do, which means they're going to have to pay people that speak every language locally and natively to understand the slang to try to stop people from communicating with each other as much as possible, right?
I can just adopt a heavy Boston accent, and then they'll never understand my fucking algorithm and shit.
Dude. Know what we're doing about it.
And maybe forget about it. I don't know.
Everybody speak in a North England style accent. Okay, we're all going to be just fine.
We're all speaking different.
We don't know what the hell we're going to say.
We're going to work out in the end.
Right. Well, and Benjamin has a great bit on that. Like, why do people in the hood always like their slang changes like the fastest? Like on fleek. You say that for like a week. If you're saying that the next week, then you're probably undercover. You know what I mean? So it's like that's the whole reason that slang exists is because you don't want to be. It's purposely a contained language.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Dang, it's code language, and we have these code books they have to keep updated. And it's an old code, but it checks out when you talk to an old guy.
Well, even like the term of using slang that people feel like is culturally appropriated for whatever reason is called code switching, right? Someone's named a code switcher if they're like using terms that maybe others are like, oh, he's not from the right neighborhood to talk like that, which is totally like, surface level stuff, but you understand why
I mean, yeah, parent. We were talking to Nina Infinity about this because she's from Iran. You code what you think in different letters. You're thinking in different symbols because you're not thinking in the translation. You're literally just start thinking in English instead of in. So if you're thinking in Iranian, you might have different thoughts because the words mean different things. The whole thing could be completely different,
Right,
unless
the
you're dealing with some of the newer languages have less nuance. I think it's you're finding that the same words are being Latin and Greek suffix and prefix words are kind of combined, so it's easier for people to have the same triggers to the same responses, right? Well, let me pull up the meme joke here. I mean, did it work? Is it frozen? Where is it? Hold on. There we go. Bill Gates is dressed as the Joker. His hair is fluorescent green, his face painted white, and his elongated smile is cut into his face. In his hand is a large needle filled with bright green liquid. The Facebook post has been shared more than 700 times and viewed by thousands of people. Below it, a caption teases Gate Horror Plan. It's a baseless conspiracy theory that has torn through Facebook throughout the pandemic. But this post is different. It's in Arabic, and it's just one example of a much larger problem. Across dozens of Arabic pages and groups, dangerous conspiracy theories about the pandemic are racking up millions of views and likes. New research from the Institute of Strategic Dialogue, ISD, which has been shared with Wired, shows vaccine falsehoods are rampantly spreading in Arabic on Facebook. Sophisticated disinformation operations have racked up millions of views on videos promoting vaccine disinformation and built up hundreds of thousands of followers. And while Facebook has repeatedly been criticized for failing to tackle this problem in English, little attention has been paid to the scale of the problem in Arabic, a language spoken by more than 400 million people. So here's their idea. They're going to build a new AI system that can translate these terms, pick up on people's terms, use it with neural language processing. So they don't actually need to even know what's being said. They're going to be able to start picking up on patterns. And then using those patterns, they're going to be able to stop conversations before they happen, where then, if someone's been arrested, tell it to the judge. Then at that point, if they really want to argue it, they can take it to a court, to one of these councils, whatever the committees that Facebook has got. And then the committee can look at the case and they might choose to accept it, but they have no, reason that they have to or anything like that. They just might choose to if it might interest them. So that's the future. What do you think?
Arthur C. Clarke, I think it's his last novel, The Light of Other Days. Michael Baxter co-wrote it with him, who's like a more modern era sci-fi writer. It's pretty much all about this, like the death of privacy. Somebody invents a technology called wormhole cameras, where you can stabilize a wormhole and then you can film all through space and time, anything you want. So somebody can be filming inside your mouth and there's just nothing you can do about it. Anywhere where there's light, and then they can shine a light through the wormhole too. So people actually who are resistant to this actually start communicating. They have long sleeves and they shake hands inside the sleeves and they write on each other's palms in total darkness. So there's always a workaround, but at the end of the day, I mean, philosophically speaking, privacy is an invention. You know what I mean? That's like an Illuminati invention. Like you're born naked into the world, like squirrels can see you, birds are looking right at your junk. Like there's nothing you can do about it. We've built up these walls and we've built up these ends and all this stuff, but privacy is something, it's a dragon we're chasing that doesn't even exist. So we are going to have to come to terms one day that technology has created this level of privacy we enjoy, and eventually it's going to tear it down. And that's just what's coming. So people often say, if you've got nothing to hide, then why are you afraid of people looking? And I hate that kind of thinking. But I do think it is an inevitability that our privacy is going away. And I'm comfortable with it. Luckily, I've had very many public shaming events and character destructions and stuff like that. And I survived many cancellations. So for me, I'm ready to go with it. But I do think we have to come to terms with the fact that a lot of the liberties that we are struggling so hard to protect, we invented them in the first place and they don't exist in nature. We don't see them anywhere else.
It was the equaling out point, I believe, with that is that people will become more interested in their own lives, right? Instead of trying to look in. So yeah, we also, that's the balancing side. We have to learn that there'll become a technology. Obviously you can look into everything, but then why are you spending all your time looking at other people when you should just be living your life,
Yeah.
So it'll balance itself out.
Speaking of people living their life, and I love this one, Shaquille O'Neal just out there on the town having a good day, telling people that he thinks the earth is flat. It's a theory, he says. And, he's made a lot of jokes about it, and he said he's been joking in the past, but he's serious as cancer when he says the rhythm is a dancer. He's telling us to our face about experiences he's had, flown 20
I mean, when
hours
you're that
straight.
tall, dude, maybe you see the world differently from that.
That's
Giants
legit,
know.
different perspective.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
That's
Well,
fair.
and hey, look, I would. What else? What does he say? I'm very interested into hearing.
Man,
what
he
people
doesn't say anything. He says, you know, like the plane doesn't turn upside down. It feels straight the whole way across. He's not going deep into the Debavian, you know, he's not saying, hey, there's a flight plans. Yeah, he hasn't done that yet. But I think that's all more to the point because he's a Freemason, right? Like he's not supposed to be telling you anything. So the fact that he's just kind of joking around and he's like, oh, well, people have talked about it. So I can say that now. So I can say that and nothing more. You know, maybe he's just following protocol.
He's just gunning for another commercial. That's what
you know how much America loves the flat earthers, right?
He's grifting, bro.
Right.
Well, there's the demographic for that. It got Trump elected. You know, you can make a lot of money off of dog whistling to flat earthers for sure.
Valid
You think advertisers aren't looking into that right now? If there wasn't all this censorship on the internet, you don't think they'd be marketing directly to deniers?
I got sponsored for a month by a granola company called Truth Smacks, and their whole branding is flat Earth granola.
That's awesome. When you're on the edge, at least you won't be hungry.
Happy to get
granola always finds its level.
That's amazing.
You know what I've been looking into on flat Earth recently is, you know, have you ever seen the map that it's kind of goes up in a like an eyeball shape at the top, and then it goes down in the middle, and then it goes back up to the Antarctic, right? To the ice
Let me see if I can find what you're talking about. Is it an old map or the newer kind of?
No, it's like one of the ideas of some of the flat earthers that kind of put out that it's not completely flat. It just, you know, it's kind of.
Oh, you mean like this one, right?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah. This is the oldest flat Earth map, by the way, that I've seen, I think. And I've seen people have this map in some of their houses because their great grandfather had this map.
So this is actually this is a good view right here. You see where the Amazon would be down in South America right there. The Amazon runs, you know, left to right or west to east or something like that, right out to the ocean. And then everything that's on the side that's you know, going up the hill pretty much, right? All the rivers seem to run north to south, like it is actually up north, right?
I will
Colorado, the Mississippi, right? They all run downwards. Why would that be?
That is a misnomer that I recently synchronistically looked into. There are over 150 rivers in the United States that go north to south. But to your point, Giant, I think there could be some truth to it because with the right pressure, a river could be pulled northward despite, you know.
Yeah, it just depends on the geography, right?
Because that river, that really large river near Alaska up there, between Canada and Alaska, it comes up to the Arctic Ocean. That flows from south to north. So that would be my argument. Like, well, there's clearly water getting pulled to the North Pole somehow. But I do think this is pretty interesting. It's a lot more interesting than a flat plane.
Yeah, that would kind of answer the whole moon and sun.
Square Earth theory, guys. Here it is.
TBDC buddy Benji, who's in all my videos with me, has this map up in his studio.
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, so this map was made in what, 1892 or something like that? I think it says.
You know who the four angels are in the corner? The four angels, they each equate to 3 of the sons of Jacob, and it says in the Bible that when you meet your end, you enter into heaven through a specific angel, one of 4 angels that's associated with your tribe of Israel, basically. Like, so I don't know. I'm not saying I believe it specifically.
I'm down with all the esoterics. I like that. My concern is I feel like this is just too much compromise and not enough holding fast, right? Either pick.
What do you think, Curtis? You actually have expertise in the area.
Teamwork in this map.
I'm just saying, pick a lane. That's all.
I'm a reggae guy. I don't know anything, bro. What do you think, Xirtus? You worked at NASA and stuff. I mean, does this ring true to you? Which of these is your favorite map?
It's a great question. I think there's a compromise. I don't know if I want to say that I think it rises in the north. I think what you have is electromagnetic density in the north that's pulling. And this is a thing that's come up recently because, you know, Ken Wheeler has been really popular and he's talked about electrons, right? But people don't visualize electrons, right? This is how, anytime I look at a picture, people are looking at it and they think that these represent little peas, basically, and so because if you think that, what you're thinking then is electrons are flowing, it's like, you know, you're buying electrons, you're buying peas, and that's not how that works, right? What you're doing is you're creating an electromagnetic field around torsion. And so densities that are emerging exist. So you might feel different kinds of perspective but everything is really, even this is really just a flat plane that's infinitely moving around and it's not even really contained, but it's considered contained because it's creating density. And that density is getting confused with gravity or magnetism or anything else, but it's all just spin state. It's all just the regular spin state that's flowing around it. So everything is field. It's really more field than anything else. So you experience that, and we probably have an objective reality that we're experiencing, but we're not able to experience anything near the fullness of an objective reality. So everyone's saying, hey, I think of you as what I've seen of you lately. You know what I mean? About the whole reality. And out of that, we're saying, okay, well, this represents distance of proximity to me because like I haven't experienced you lately. So I think in that sense, everything is here now, like quantum entanglement, like the entire universe, or if there is a multiverse, or if there are multi-symmetries within a universe, then they're all probably stacked in a literally flat holographic reality, and we're experiencing ourselves as density, like pop-up book projections to an extent. I think that's the best I got on that, but I could be wrong too. And
I wonder then maybe then, well, it's because that's awesome. That is like super close to basically, okay, yeah, hey, like I'm on board with pretty much everything you just said. But then it comes back to the question of the map. Maybe it's not best of what actually a map of what is, but then how best a map can help us measure our experience of what this actual reality. So what, like,
I mean, pilots use polar projection maps.
I got it out.
Oh, no, go. Sorry.
No, that's it. That's all I could get to. And then my brain froze. So thank you.
I think, Andreas, you did a really good job of explaining kind of like holographic or electromagnetic universe theory in a way.
Everything is field. That was cool.
Yeah, and we're also seeing a lot of geologists talk about like this tectonic and pole shift activity, which would also make sense in this equation. So not that I am set either way, but yeah,
I think it doesn't necessarily need to represent reality either. A map probably shouldn't represent reality because what do you want? A scale model or something? Right. I mean, so ideologically, ideologically, it's useful to separate Russia from America, even though they're right next to each other and basically the same thing. If you're trying to ideologically separate them. Right. And a map like this, if you're trying to think about, I mean, the UN uses a map like this because it brings the world together, right? Bringing the world together and bringing it close. And when I travel, like a pilot, I'm thinking of the world like this because the whole world is at my fingertips, right? It's just, it's all connected. Brittany's super chat. Thank you, Brittany. You have best map in your Google. John Abizade flat earth map is in your drive. Hold on, let me pull this up. John Abizade flat
to see the parallel between the biomes there. Like you have like almost like they reflect each other with like the Gobi Desert and the Southwest United States, and then like they're very, very similar locations.
It's not I don't know if this is the full map, I guess, but this is supposed to be a John Bizade flat earth map. Okay, I know I know I have it somewhere in my Google Drive, but I didn't know to look for it, so I don't know where exactly I'd find it. Let me just zoom in.
That's a map?
This looks like a divination tool.
Yeah, well, I see a equator written there. Okay, wow.
The pendulum of where am I going tomorrow?
Greenland.
Wow. And Brittany, we're gonna have to get Brittany at some point to describe this stuff. Brittany is the real truth fairy. I was talking to Venice Beach. I think she's gonna be on Venice Beach Dub Club pretty soon.
Thank you for the fairy dash. This is great.
Great. She's got all kinds of great books and maps and military documents and everything.
Wow. Look at that.
So Australia.
Wow.
I wish I should figure out where this came from because I'm sure this came from, it's got Arabic writing on it. So it's probably somebody who knew both, this Abizade guy. But I don't know the story yet. So Brittany, you're gonna have to tell us. But East Equator, I mean, so this is an interesting point also. If you have a flat polar projection, then you can't use a compass the same way. You can use the compass the way it works, but you can't imagine it the same way because East and West are in polar directions. Here's East and here's West, right? Because they're coming around at each other. So if you went left here, you're going west, but if you went left here, you're going east, right? Eventually, east becomes west, and east and west becomes east. So that's an interesting thing about it. Also, the idea of the South Circle being delineated outwards. I mean, it's a very similar idea, and it has to. I think this is probably a closer reality to us. But I also think this would work the same for the solar system or the universe or an atom or anything else. They're probably just all fractal patterns of each other, and so. That's the other thing. The James Webb pictures of Jupiter. Did you guys see the James Webb Jupiter pictures?
Oh man, yeah.
Jupiter, James Webb, because it was like basically it looked converted to me. It didn't look like. I mean, if you took the picture and you had a negative, it would kind of be these colors. Right?
Yeah,
it's pretty.
I see what you mean.
Definitely doesn't look like somewhere you can go to and land on. It looks like a plasma.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's supposed to be gaseous.
That looks more real than the CGI perfect looking one. I mean, that's that's what
But,
stars look like if you look at them even through just binoculars or a P90 camera or P90X camera. I mean, they look.
But if everything's flat, then everything's flat, right? And so if these things that we're imagining as being distant from us,
light is never flat. Light is emanating from a central point in every direction at once without a limit, except until it hits into something. So if stars are neither flat nor, I mean, it's light coming out in every direction. So I guess it would be something like spherical, but it would have to terminate at equal points to make it form the shape of a sphere. But it's just whatever direction you're looking at a star from, the light is going out in every direction, right? Or do I have that wrong?
I mean, so it's hard because Eric, Eric Dollard. Dollard. So Eric Dollard talked a lot about this and the idea of charged electrons and densities and he's, brilliant guy. Love to try to get an interview with him. I think he's living in his car in Slab Valley, because they really hunted him down after he made a system that transferred electric energy for free for 20 miles or something in Oregon and in Northern California. He built some systems that did that. And then they just shut him down in the 80s. And so his life has been shut down. But the dude's amazing. And he totally gets Tesla and knows where Tesla was missing out on certain things because he didn't quite get to and has superseded.
Is he from
Tesla.
Oakland? Is that guy from Oakland originally?
I don't remember where Eric Dollard's originally from. And I don't think he has a Wikipedia page.
He lives in a car, which is outfitted with these really strange.
Who said what a loser? That was hilarious.
What a loser. Yeah, he doesn't have a wiki page.
That was good.
Right?
That was good.
That's good. Good job.
He lives in a car, but his car is like, Back to the Future-esque. It's like
got wiki over there.
All this super awesome technology.
Right.
Yeah.
The cosmic light bulb. Yeah, that guy's from Oakland.
He's been interviewed recently on the Higher Side Chat.
There's a fucking Wikipedia page.
Cool.
Well, it's hard because if you can't go to the Wikipedia page and find the place he's born because they're trying to suppress him. I remember his Indiegogo, or somebody did Indiegogo to collect his books, find him in his car, interview him back in 2010 or something like that. And we got a bunch of, I got a bunch of stuff from Eric Dollard and tried to get in touch with him more. But there's been some people since then, Ken has mentioned these, ideas of dielectricity and everything, but they're pretty well flushed out by Dollard. And he's done a lot of really amazing experiments that are, not just like laser pointers, like straight up transferring electricity 10, 20 miles, 4 days at a time, weeks at a time, actually turning on whole cities until they are turned off by the city council that is under control of some other, major state sponsored thing. So his thought on, again, this idea of field, right, is that light can project into field. If you have radiation that can be absorbed by something, so it doesn't have to be carbon. It could just be loose subatomic particles. Subatomic particles can develop in a field that they can absorb radiation. And that is the theory behind what a black hole is. The idea that a black hole is a super density of it's able to pull things in. And this is why they're worried about Cern. And Elon Musk, we should pull that up. Elon Musk tweet about CERN's demonic technology, because they're always saying, hey, you could produce a little black hole, right? And could you control it? Could you keep that in some, how strong of a little, how weak of a little black hole could you produce? Well, nature produces them all the time. Right. That's a big thing about why we exist and are coherent and yet are separate and don't just smash into each other except sexually.
Except on weekends, right? Yeah. Very interesting. So, and do you think CERN is looking to control, sustain, maintain an open black hole? That seems to be the popular.
I think that. So the funny thing is, where's the tweet? They're always trying to say, "Hey, we're not there yet." It's like when people ask you if you could clone a mammoth or something like that. Like, of course, they're always like, "Oh, no. I just want to learn about genomics, right?" But yeah, like if you really push them, you're like, hey, but if you could though,
aren't they trying to bring back the Tasmanian devil or the Tasmanian tiger or something? I saw that recently. They're trying to bring back an extinct animal. That was
they're going to bring back all the extinct animals. This is what 2012's promise was, that we were going to have all these extinct mammoths and the small ones first. Where's the tweet? They don't have it.
Come on, they do. They'd bring back extinct virus first if they could do that.
Well, and that's what they're doing. No, they're doing that, right? You've heard the deep permafrost viruses. That's the first thing that's coming.
They're bringing them back.
So CERN's built on top of on right on Apollo's. It's supposed to be like a hole to hell or whatever.
Right. Okay. Also, just to clarify, 30,000-year-old giant virus comes back to life. Giant virus, because this thing is huge,
Giant
the biggest virus.
Huge.
I'm not that big of a
Everybody
virus,
says.
As a Wikipedia page,
Actual size. No, I'm just kidding.
Everybody says I'm the biggest virus.
I didn't know they can stack viruses that tall.
But yeah, so I don't know where it is, but there was I wanted to find the tweet. I better just go to Twitter. But keep going while I find it.
That was very funny. It would be interesting. Yeah, if it was that giant, could you see it like slowly inching toward you?
Yeah.
Like my
It's like Leap
cereal.
and Gloop from the Herculoids. They were like giant, giant amoeba things. That'd be cool. I'd unfreeze one of those. I'd unfreeze that. You know what I mean?
Oh man, I'm just gonna find all the wrong memes. I won't find it on time. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We do have some decent. We do have some new super chat. Let me make sure I got that. Hold on. Bruce says Tom Luongo explains the elite factions the best. Okay, I haven't seen that. Do you guys know who Tom Luongo is?
No.
All right. Well, we will have to look into that.
Cool. Yeah.
I like Robert Anton Wilson. I think Robert Anton Wilson did a really good job because it's in any movie like The Godfather it kind of explains it also. Like, we're going to have a war between the families and our foot soldiers. They're not going to be allowed to deal with their foot soldiers. And it's, all simultaneously they're mafia, right? We recently looked into how mafia comes from this word ma'afi, which were janissaries of the Ottomans that took taxes to not burn people's fields down. And eventually, when they lost the government over them, they just kept doing that, and they continue to offer protection. And the mafia actually comes from that tradition. So you have the same thing. You've got Biden and the Teamsters in Pittsburgh doing exactly the same thing as they were doing in Malta or in parts of Sicily. But it just continues along. Yeah, and then they fight with each other over what resources they have. But yeah, I will look into Tom Luongo. Let me pull up China. I guess it's time for China.
Time for China.
China. I'm very concerned about China. China's expanding the submarine fleet. Makes experts worried about the Taiwan's readiness. Okay. This is a serious thing, though. That started with this other article I saw, which was they had this like yacht that they put a bunch of decorative umbrellas that happened to look like satellites. You know what I mean? And so. But so this is
decorative umbrellas. Are they serious?
But this is this is supposed to be. Yeah. This is where we're at. This is where we're at with the war with China. I mean, it's like no. There's nothing going on. They should have painted it pink because that would have.
There's nothing
that would work.
Just rainbow colored.
But they don't have yellow submarines. They have regular terrifying submarines. And there's 66 new submarines in 2020, 76 by 2030. They're expanding their submarine fleets. If you know about what's it called? Terra something. Terra
Del Mar?
No. So like a submarine, but a terrorine. Is that right?
Oh.
Terrorine. Oh man, I forget the term
the
for
ground.
it. Yeah, like underground Soviet,
like a mechanized gopher.
Submarine.
Oh, with water.
Land submarine. What the heck is that called?
A boring device.
Land marine. Yeah, land marine.
Land submarine. Is this land powered? Land
marine.
Drills its own tunnels as it travels.
The battle mole.
There it is. Jesus
They're Underminer subterrane. There we go. Okay.
Underminer.
Like Elon Musk's like boring
right
or whatever. Isn't that what he...
This is based on this. Yeah. So basically, and look at the very Jules Vernian looking thing. But they have these drills and they've had them for clearly long enough that this picture is like 100 years old. And they've been building them into the 60s and 70s and 80s when we had nuclear fleets. They were embedding them into the Pacific West coast of California. And we haven't found all of the nuclear powered submarines left over from the Cold War. So theoretically, there are just nukes like lining the West Coast that could go off if ever, the Cold War didn't go right, was the plan that we never found.
These aren't actually manned devices. They're more like drone sort of mines that insert themselves
RC.
into a place until they're
torpedo drills. Yeah.
RC helicopters, and they did have manned versions of these things, but the ones that don't need men can go further, faster, hotter. You know what I mean? So
Longer, stronger. Yeah.
indeed, but that's exactly now. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna send people? Of course, you'd rather have a RC AI powered drone drill submarine. So we're headed towards that. But they have human powered submarine fleets, and that's an interesting thing because they're building colonies, the Chinese colonies that are all over the world. And what happens if they build an island and then they put some of their population on that island? And they claim it? Then they can continue to spread out, right? Nobody's afraid of China. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean,
we're all afraid. We're too afraid.
You got to remember Nancy Pelosi going to Taiwan to meet with the CEO of the largest superconductor corporation or whatever, which is producing microchips. And then you look back at, I'm just going to give you some details. I don't know what it all adds up to. Then, around 3-4 years ago, we had a whole bunch of planes that went down mysteriously in the Southeast Asian Sea. And on every one of those small flights, there was somebody who owned a patent to superconductor technology. So there's, something huge is going on with that. I'm told it's about microchip production. I imagine there's got to be something more to it in that. Xirtus, you might know more about it than me, but that's all there is to Taiwan is they're the superconductor place. And that's why Nancy Pelosi had to fly there under military escort. I'm sure she would have preferred not to, you know what I mean? But it was that important. So I don't know what it all means. Those are just some details.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like Nancy Pelosi wants America to fall. I mean, I know maybe that's crazy. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe she really does believe.
She's got a better deal over here. That's all. Sorry, guys.
No, it's not quite that.
She's
I don't quite think
under herself. Yeah, Mr. Douglas is right. She's a supranational.
I mean, that is a reasonable Occam's razor, but I genuinely think that, and I've seen this through liberal media and audiences and my mom, that they believe that America's done so much evil, that Trump was the evil, it's the personification of American evil, and that America really ought to fold itself just to kind of forgive and forget and just become part of this greater, better thing, which is everybody working together that are, whatever that means. And I can see how China offers that in the same way that the Soviet Union and Stalin appealed to Democrats in the 50s, right? Because in the 40s and 50s, there were a lot of Americans who thought, hey, you know what? The Gulag, fake news. The communists, nah, they're fine. Stalin, you're really exaggerating. He couldn't possibly kill 140 million people. It took a while for people to finally say, oh, okay, well, maybe you're right. And at this point, I think most Democrats accept that Stalin killed millions. I don't know if are we on that? Are we there yet? But at the same time, now they're moving on to this idea that, hey, China's not so bad. China doesn't really do the Uyghur thing, right? That would be crazy. Evil does it.
Camera over there. They showed it would look fun. They were having it's a vacation stop. You guys.
And maybe that's
Twitter says so.
Maybe that's giving Nancy Pelosi too much credit. If I'm saying I think, maybe she's naive to some of the actual atrocities or something. Maybe she is. Maybe she's complicit. I don't know. But it just
naive at best.
I don't see her as Taiwan. I don't think anyone in Taiwan was like, "Yay, Nancy Pelosi's here to save."
She was coming to do a business deal with a superconductor company that produces.
Well, that could be. That is a big. That's the thing. Ostensibly, that is a good thing. If
she didn't even have a pretense of American interest when she went there. She didn't even give a pretense of why she was going there. And all she did while she was there is have a business meeting. It's the most naked thing ever.
America doesn't recognize Taiwan as a country. They recognize them as an invaluable trading partner, a protected trading partner. So the more she sets up 20-year contracts with these specific state corporations, I don't know if it was Freescale or which company it was, by the way, but they're likely to accept that as, America is going to continue to protect its 20-year or 5-year contract, which means we have another 5 years before we get destroyed or assimilated or something.
I think an idea that
argument they're taking.
I think an idea that resonates perfectly with Nancy Pelosi's operating system is what we call China is actually the CCP, which is what do you call it? It's not the legitimate Chinese government. It's I can't think of the right word, but it's stolen.
Occupying force.
Yes, thank you. It's an occupying force. The CCP is occupying China, just the way that the United States government, Washington D.C., the swamp is occupying our landmass. And I think that's these people's operating systems at this level of money and influence is they're like, who cares about nations and land? Just like you're saying, the shape of the earth is like some electrons are doing something I didn't understand. The shape isn't that important to them. The shape of nations and the landmass and all that stuff and the people mean nothing. They're just like, we're the big ballers. This is the House of Targaryens. We're the whatever the other ones are. You know what I mean? Like that's what they're operating on, is like everything to them is like deals, wars. You know what I mean? And this is all small pond stuff to them, like worrying about the name of the nation or who the people are, any of that stuff.
A slightly less exciting for the world, but an interesting one to me is an Argentinian prosecutor requests 12-year sentence for Vice President Fernandez Kirchner. Now, some of you are like, who? But those of you who have any experience in South America know that Fernandez Kirchner, along with basically chasing me out of Argentina into Paraguay, was arrested and put up a speech on at the UN saying, hey, I didn't know what was going on at the time with the CIA in Bariloche. All I knew was that Obama had sent his agents or his diplomats or whatever to secretly talk to me and convince me that I had, when she was president, that she had to give nuclear secrets that the Nazis had brought to Argentina to the House of Saudi Arabia. Right. And to Mohammed bin Salman. And she's like, I didn't know what it was about. So what do you say?
Wow. No, just wow. That is one hell of a. Oh, so really it's about the Nazis and what they told me at first. Okay. And then Obama came back later.
That's
he
like
said you have to give, but I always like, I don't think so just yet. Okay. So you take 12 years? Ooh.
Half of Argentina agrees with you, and the other half agrees with you even more, I think is the irony here.
Where she's going, there's no Botox. That's all I can say.
Right. And, so when I had left Argentina, basically Niesman had been a prosecutor. Let me look this up. If I get Niesman, Argentina, was a prosecutor who
could be Adolf Hitler in a rubber mask, by the way. She looks crazy.
You never know. Actually, weirdly enough, when I was in
Obama, it was Obama's fault. He told me to do it. Yeah.
When I was in Argentina the first time, there was a dude in Salta who was claiming to have been like a 115-year-old Hitler living in Argentina. He was a crazy old man, but he looked and he was German and all this other stuff was kind of like, or Austrian or whatever. Like, so it all kind of like synced up. It's just like, it would just be impossible. That's all everyone said. But like, I don't know, dude. Haven't you ever seen a sci-fi about the Nazis? Like they had some weird stuff going on. Like the German pharmaceutical companies might be behind it. I don't know. But all right. So Niesman.
Although you've seen those videos of Hitler tweaking out at the Olympics too, right? I mean, yeah, they were definitely experimenting with a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot of experimentation. We were very experimentative people.
Feeling good, and I don't know why. Keep it coming. Yeah,
keep it coming.
What's the name of the city or the town in Argentina that's like 100% white German people that speak German?
Argentina. That's basically Argentina. A lot. Oh, okay. But no, in Paraguay, no, that's not fair.
Not
actually.
Argentina. Yeah.
In Paraguay, it's legit. Like you go to Paraguay, it's Philadelphia, North Paraguay. Half of Paraguay speaks German. Signs are in German. All the road signs are in German. I was going into German pubs, German restaurants, and then the only people there are like, there's some German people that are just from modern Germany that are coming along and they work for Volkswagen and they're doing some sort of a business agreement or something. But then you've got all the locals, and the locals are supposed to be these Russians, but they all speak German because that part of Russia that controlled Germany at the time. And then they had these families that came over in the 30s. But then you meet these nice kids who are like, they have long hair and they skateboard, and maybe their grandfather's pool has a swastika in it, but they don't, that's not what cool. They don't even I mean, it's true. They have Jewish friends, and Jews live in South America a lot as well. Israelis love to vacation there.
Love the heat. What can we say?
There's a lot of Nazi hunters, and even into today, that are going down from Israel, and it's kind of a terrorist activity because they'll go in without a state sponsorship, and then they'll burn down an entire village of the great granddaughters of these, of these dudes who were probably forced, can't imagine that they had a lot of choice at the time, were forced to become soldiers. And we're talking about like, 1 million people, because it's 250,000, 300,000 dudes plus their families through the Draganovich Trail. So there is a lot of humanitarian crisis about it as well. But I mean, in general, I don't think anti-Semitism is like the biggest thing in Argentina. Argentina has a lot of communists, has a lot of Italians, has a lot of different kinds of people. So it pushed them out. So there are groups, like if you go down to the south, like in parts of Patagonia, there are still some Germans there. But even then, dude, like dudes with dreadlocks that make Rasta beer and stuff. Patagonia is wonderful. Argentina is wonderful. So I've seen more authoritarianism in Brazil. I think Brazil's the hot spot for it, really. Still.
We gotta reclaim all these symbols, all these ancient good symbols, like the swastika. You know, I understand the swastika is reversed of the I forget the name with the real, but like somebody brought up earlier, like the Illuminati hand sign or whatever. That means unity. Like, you know, where I come from, that means unity. You put your hands
or the
together,
vagina, which is also
There are no bad symbols. Like the idea that some geometry is good and some geometry is bad. Like maybe just like random squiggles and chaos is bad, but like shapes are not bad.
Well, but that's interesting because there are, you know, in South America you have the Hare Krishna, and in Brazil they're very big. In Venezuela they're very big. I met a lot of Venezuelans that have become Hare Krishna, and it's spreading. And of course they're using the ancient Vedic and Jaina symbols, which include the correct reversed version of the sun symbols, and these are of course all trying to bring it back to light and life and love and everything else. But okay, I digressed really far. The reason I wanted to bring up Niesman and Fernandez Kushner, that's right, because met this guy, interesting guy, super cool lawyer, Jewish lawyer, and then he gave me a USB drive, and then he was suicided, basically. And so we looked through the USB drive, did some BBC correspondence, and also with The Guardian, and sent the data that we got that proved at the time that there was some sort of a deal, grains for oil deal, that had been going on, where they had taken the names of 12 Arabic terrorists, Saudi Arabian terrorists off the list who had bombed Argentina in the 90s, right? So that was the beginning of my introduction to Fernandez Kushner. Let me see. I just lost my Fernandez Kushner doc. Where did I put that? There we go. So, but ever since then, she hasn't left the site of the media. And so she's been pushing on with, you know, a conspiracy. She's being arrested for being a part of a conspiracy. Good job, Argentina. But, you know, involving 51 public works contracts for road works to Lazaro Baez in southern Santa Cruz province, which is the Welsh populated southeast of Argentina. So they're supposed to take all this money. They're supposed to build all these roads, huge amounts of infrastructure in a place where there aren't that many people. And then the money is going, and those are the areas where they have all these stories of UFOs, these corporations that are building UFOs in Bariloche and El Bosón. So it's interesting because the money's disappearing. Where's the money going to? It's going to these families associated with Nazis from Mercedes-Benz and everything else that were in charge of the Iguazu power plant and are associated with building weird flying saucer technology. So what do you guys think?
Well, okay. So is this then? Interesting. Bring it back to the factional portion of our conversation. Already, it seems like there are at least 3 about doing their own thing. This one particular faction recently is dumping a whole bunch of moolah into places that have pumped out some really interesting tech in the past. Are we going to see an uptick? Have we already been seeing an uptick in anomalous technology in the sky? Is this a part of that, you know, factory churn out? What's the narrative that they're combating to control?
Flying out from the south. That's right.
I'm not a flying saucer guy. I mean, it's above my pay grade. I have no idea if that's a feasible technology. Can you? I mean, is it?
Oh, really? You haven't seen the Discopter episode? Did you see that ever?
Dude, you do a lot of episodes, bro.
How dare you miss one of my hundreds of thousands of 3 episodes a day
on the Xirtus network? Yeah.
You know what? I'll take it. That's fair.
Do they make passenger jet? Like, is it? Could we be flying in these much more comfortably and quicker?
Oh yeah. Let me see if I can find his name. There you go. Alexander Vigers wanted the military to use his UFO design, and he built this in the 20s. And he.
I've seen this. I did see this episode.
I had a feeling because you were probably, I think you super chatted so I could remember. So here's the thing. This one has, you know, a magnet system, so it's easy to land, and the magnets force it up so out of this landing, what do you call it? Where a platform where a helicopter would land, the magnets will align it to just land perfectly without any computers, really. I mean, it has a few onboard microcontrollers to control the electromagnetic force, but we're talking 1920s, like simple stuff here. And then you can fly in the ship. And the irony being, he was, you know, working on this idea for the whole world. He's like, hey, the whole world will have these landing ports that will be easy to take these even bigger versions of that can hold multiple ships underneath them or in them, or it can just have a bunch of people like a giant Discopter bus. And then, you know, these aren't just simple designs. They're pretty exact. You could manufacture these things. Tried to get it made, the government just went behind his back and started building discopters, which they presented as never working properly. And then they just sort of disappeared them off the scale. Whereas they've permeated all of pop culture. Everyone's always thinking of the discopter when they think of an unidentified flying object or a UAV or UAP. So
not shaped like a penis enough, so let's do airplanes instead.
But that's the other thing. There are a lot of phallic, the rods, people see the flying rods or whatever, which could be something that's moving really fast. Let me get rid of this.
Speak of the devil, here's speak of penises. Here's the #1 best adult dating site.
Did you do that? That was your fault. No,
I summoned him. Yeah, I summoned him.
Don't engender them. I always imagine them as being a lady. It makes me feel slightly better about it.
Definitely a bot. It's an it they.
Yeah. But there are a lot of Argentinian flying saucer things that we should worry about. Okay, how about Saudi Arabian Twitter spy? Former Twitter worker convicted of spying for Saudi Arabia. So basically, San Francisco, a former Twitter employee has been convicted of failing to register as an agent for Saudi Arabia and other charges after accessing private data on users critical of the kingdom's government in a spy case that spanned the Silicon Valley to the Middle East. See, he doesn't really care about your privacy. He just wants to make sure nobody in Saudi Arabia are doing anything like looking at transgender furry porn or something. You're fine. But okay, Ahmed Abuamu, a U.S. citizen and former media participant or partnership manager for the Twitter's Middle East region, was charged in 2019 with acting as an agent for Saudi Arabia without registering with the U.S. government. So what do you guys think? I mean, a guy's chosen to, serve another state. Technically, that used to be way more dramatic. You'd have to be like a spy, but he's just kind of a mole in the company. But so in other words, it's becoming so accessible to become an espionage artist in this world. What do you think of this guy? And also that they're spending so much time on the internet. Are they from America? Are they from Saudi Arabia? Like, is this affecting their
cultural loyalties?
Loyalties. God, Douglas.
The Twitter whistleblower, I forget what his name is, the other day, he said that in his report that there was likely multiple foreign intelligence agents working at Twitter, which is just like an incredible
surprise.
Well, I mean, and like people are surprised. People are asking the question, what percentage of Twitter is actually bots or human agents, and what percent is actually organic people just trying to share?
I'm way more afraid of the human agents than the bots. The bots, they help me connect my flight plans. The human agents are. They have, the CIA's got a bunch of these little anime girl pictures that they can put up on a fake accounts. So, about 6 of your friends on Facebook are at least FBI
right,
agents.
But what percentage of Twitter is actually like organic people that aren't like either agents or bots, do you think? Like, because I've heard people who know about it like estimate as low as 20%.
How organic is a person on Twitter?
And then if you calculate how much of the Western world's policies are based off of Twitter opinions, basically,
right?
And then of course they censor dissenting opinions. And then on top of that, I think 8% of Americans use Twitter, and only 2% of the world is on Twitter. That can't even be right. It's got to be less than 2% of the world actually uses Twitter. But 8% of Americans use Twitter. So is that right? Maybe it's 8% of the world. I have the numbers wrong, but it's a very small proportion of human beings that actually use Twitter. And then of that proportion, like a tiny proportion is actually real people representing their own beliefs instead of being agents or bots. And then this is what informs all of our policy creation, down to like how many genders there are, when it's okay to mutilate children, like the most insane stuff you've ever heard of. And all of it is just, it's 100% an AstroTurf operation, and it's becoming super obvious. And it does look like Elon Musk knew what he was doing when he went into this buyout offer, and when they do go to court, it looks like we'll get some discovery on that. And I'm sure none of the media will cover it because it's going to be extremely revealing, what our intelligence agencies role is in social media and how they're using this to AstroTurf opinion that later becomes policy. And then we wind up with like, we force every small business in the world to build a third bathroom if we don't just shut them down outright. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's unbelievable. I mean, to me, it's totally believable, but I really just hope and pray. I mean, my greatest hope ever is that people can, maybe I don't have everything right, but at least I'm trying to see through the deceptions. And I hope more people are able to do that or become interested in doing that when this stuff goes big.
No, it's brilliant. I mean, I'm terrified by carbon taxes, the CO2 taxes in Europe. That is so brilliant. Like first you've got people nailing carpets up to the floor. I think is my favorite conspiracy before this, right? Because you get people to nail carpets to the floor, then you can sell them vacuums that don't really work, and it's worse than water bottles or cigarettes or anything else. But the thing that's worse than nailing carpets to the floor, worse than water bottles even, is selling carbon taxes, because you're taxing air. You're literally just come. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
That's your money. Give it to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And the way it works is, if you have a business in Europe, you're only allowed to use so much carbon, so much air, unless you buy somebody else's. So people can start these businesses and sell their carbon taxes. And of course, Google's buying thousands of carbon credits from other people's fake businesses, these shell corporations that exist for no other reason than to sell them. It's just a money-making schema. You have to wonder about the people smart enough to set up this thing, who they are and how they knew the paperwork and how they got in on the ground floor and set this up. But it's amazing, right? And that's their control mechanism.
Do you think it'll last? I mean, it really is, like you just described, out of air. They've created a system on top of a system that is not being addressed at the moment for.
I don't think money's going to last. I don't think money is going to last in the state that we in the concept that we have of money. I think things were very rapidly headed towards the communist Soviet Star Trek. I'm trying to say that's a Freudian slip ever. Wow.
Well, I mean, Roddenberry was all about it. Regardless.
But right, we're gonna get to a point where it's a neo-feudalism, because we've only ever really lived in feudalism ever since they've taken the capitalist Native American system away from them, right? Because Native Americans were capitalists. Africans were capitalists. They would take this bison. You get one of the bison, you make a jacket. Capitalism. Feudalism, though, ever since, it's always there's a group of people that have the most control over the anarchy, the ANCAP, that's become the biggest state or maritime or trading partner. They control everyone else, and then they have Valans, and the Valans have serfs, and it's the same. And this is why it's reflected in our organized crime, because how is it organized? It's organized the way it's always been organized. It's the way it has to be organized.
It's a philosophical disease. Then you have the biggest castle, and you look out the window of your castle, and you see nothing but slums and ghettos. And then you say, this place sucks. We need to go build Elysium or go to another planet. This place, you know what I mean? So it's like you have to take care of the people around you, so your view isn't a terrible slum in every direction.
Right, but that's the Fabian steps. So you get to George Bernard Shaw, and George Bernard Shaw says in The Intelligent Woman's Guide to Socialism that the rich can avoid getting the plague until the poor get the plague. Once the poor get the plague, then they get the plague. So you gotta put chlorine in all the waters, right? You gotta fluoridate it all. You gotta keep it all safe. So not necessarily your kids' water, but the kids that are gonna hang out with your kids, they better not have potholes.
Good thing water doesn't turn into vapor and move, though.
Yeah.
That's all right. We'll tax it. We'll get you. It's all right.
And Morton Joe had the water prices low. Bring back a Morton Joe.
Right.
What Seth said that I want to just highlight real quick is a castle in a city of slums. It's like a parasite that's not doing its job, because a good parasite wants to exist symbiotically with its host. It doesn't want its host to die, right? So what are we seeing there where this like parasitic entity is just like subsuming itself, consuming itself, and shortening its own lifespan?
Right.
Yeah.
It's right. It is not in any kind of sympathetic resonance. No.
Yeah. And they're exposed now to our criticism. For like hundreds of years, these people would just move up through academia, and they'd only get complimented on their philosophies and their ideas and their works and stuff like that. But now they are exposed to us. They can't censor us out. We're critical of what they're doing to the world. They're the ones steering the ship, and they're crashing it into icebergs over and over and over again. It's all them. We have no control over this. So they're exposed to our criticism now. People are, giving them their reviews, like the Rotten Tomatoes reviews are in for Modern Civilization, and it's not
Modern
good.
Civilization.
The critic reviews 100%, audience reviews like 10%. So I mean, something's going to have to change.
There's an element though that they're testing us, right? They're showing us a reflection of ourselves, because if we're dependent on them, right, then we're just as much as kind of these leeches. If we can get independent, if we can learn from each other and work out our community systems, right? If you understand how to interact with your county or whatever to get permits or do whatever it is that you do, or change things that you don't like, the rule sets within your community, then you work together as a community and you can uphold your community, right? Like you were saying, you want to make sure those people around you aren't failing, because they're going to come for yours. If you're siphoning off the system, you're treating it just like these elites are. And it's really just a test from the top down, right? We have to learn to be more giving and more caring and provide for ourselves, learn how to fix everything ourselves, learn how to cook our own food. We don't need to be getting our food from somewhere else. We don't need to be having someone else cook it for us, because we're actually dependent on servitude. You see what I'm saying? So we need to be less dependent on the servitude and become more service to each other, right?
100%. Like we're dysfunctional beings because we allow people to slip through the cracks like that, and then you wind up in the richest cities in the world, stepping over piles of drug-addled homeless people, and it's like it creates a disharmonious state. Like I do honestly believe that humanity can kind of like upgrade just philosophically, not technologically, and we can create like a harmonious vibe, not to sound like a total hippie or a communist or anything.
I'm with you there.
We're programmed at a very deep level instinctually to take care of each other. You'll never see any other animal. Somebody will find an exception, like ants. You know what I mean? They just don't leave like a dead ant in the middle of the. You know what I mean? They're going to take care of it. They're
like
going to,
ants.
you know, and the whole idea of like the American military of no man left behind. I think that's why we have so many people that like love our military and love our troops, because of this idea that isn't even really held to anymore. That like we'll send 1,000 men to die to rescue one man. Like the agreement is when you're in with us, like we take care of each other. You know what I mean? And I think that really is ingrained in us in a deep level. And when we try to fight against it, like we just create this like horrible disharmony. And that's kind of the state we're living in now.
Well, in terms of disconnection and Babylon and all that, so you know the Nigerian government has tried to suppress certain amounts of. Let me put this a different way to start with. So I have a friend. I did that talk with the Nigerian guy, and I was trying to figure out how he could, you know, get his own YouTube channel going, but he can't connect his bank because the Nigerian banks. There was all these conspiracy theories about Nigerian banks, right? And Nigerians are supposed to be, you know, you can't do a PayPal because PayPal won't connect with the Nigerian banks. But if you have a gray account, which is this expat thing for Nigerians and Africans who live in Britain or America, then they can do it. But then they try to take that away, and they say you have to call. And so in other words, if you were to try to call the 24-hour hotline, you'd have to use an American number. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to build this guy a Google number, because at this point, it isn't about him. It's about PayPal messing with me, you know? And so I wanted to set this whole thing up to try to argue with PayPal and say, hey, I understand that you have no prejudice against Nigerians having PayPal accounts. So if it's not, if imagine him as my, you know, he's an expat essentially, because he's living on the internet. He's got a bank account in the other country. He's got a phone number. What's the problem there? And the real problem I'm finding is that Nigeria feels pressured by the internet, by the social media companies that are trying to control Nigeria to sway public opinion. And that's what it all comes back to, this Twitter article. So this is a while ago. This was January before the earlier election, but Nigeria succeeded in clipping Twitter's wings. And they said, hey, there's media manipulation in Nigeria. They're trying to shut down and oppress certain candidates who don't have the right ties to the West. They're trying to push these Western candidates up that have no popularity. And we're not going to allow Twitter during election season. It's the only way to protect Nigerians. Wow. And then a lot of the West was saying, hey, you know, this is terrible because now Nigerians won't be able to get their news, as if Twitter's the only place to get your news. But it's an almost relative point, because for me, even now, as someone who's, you know, worked for CNN and tries to gather news from all sorts of different sources using RSS feeds and aggregators and whatever, knowing the journalist and talking to them on Twitter has actually been a really convenient tool, right? So it's a hard thing, because on one hand, these companies are destroying these countries, but on the other hand, they're being forbidden from accessing the useful tools anyway, right? Because I think YouTube, Facebook, PayPal, they're all trying to make money off of Americans because they think they have the most money that they can rip off of them. And so they're thinking, hey, this guy in Nigeria, he doesn't have enough to make it worth our time to rip him off, right? Or otherwise they would push harder. I don't know. So
Oh, that's very interesting. And that has been the argument of a particular blockchain that I'm a big fan of since its introduction to me, at least for years. Their whole point is the system that we live in now, and this is a wider Web3 talking point, but in particular, the blockchain Cardano, my personal opinion, is on top of their shit.
Delicious.
Yeah, there you go. All right, you know what's up. Tavern Squad, go check it out. Anyway, the whole idea is that the system that we live in is tilted completely so that the upper half of the hemisphere and Australia kick it, where everybody else is, yes, too poor, too in the credit-style dumps to deal with. And cryptocurrency, or blockchain technology, excuse me, using cryptocurrency, can leapfrog this entire system. And potentially, no, it's not a given, because there are issues with all technology, but potentially allow for individual voices to be heard without needing these third-party services that can control and mitigate communication at a base level. You wouldn't have to worry about that. They even have a way to fire yourself without having to divulge any sensitive identification information, just using the programmability of the blockchain itself. There's some really cool stuff that could happen here. We're on the razor's edge of entering a whole new world of wonder or not so greatness for a bit.
My God. And just, as a non sequitur, crypto dev thrown in jail for checking his Coinbase account. Virgil Griffith was really helping North Korea evade sanctions and launder money by teaching them about crypto. So, Doug, it was good knowing you. But
was that a knock at my door? No one lived here.
No, but actually, on a logical line of thought, we should talk later about this a bit more, about Coinbase, not Coinbase, Cardano. Sorry, about Cardano. And because this is important. There's so many people out in the world that could be connected and working with each other. And this is one of the things I think with my Nigerian friend. He can do a lot of stuff, and he can very quickly learn things because he has got the time. So he can do a lot of these things. Probably has more humility than most other people that are going to want to charge you 100 times more or something like that. Just not because it's the value, but because they have too much self-aggrandizement. So I think it's important that we connect the world. And maybe this is ironic because people might say, hey, this is an open borders thing, as Andreas being a virtual George Soros by saying on the internet we shouldn't have boundaries, that we should. What do you think?
Could we possibly give out to these people USB drives with open source programs like Audacity and a Shotcut or whatever to give them the tools to start their own podcast? Because as far as I know, you could start a podcast from any country with any, it might be closed within that system, but anybody can code their own podcast. They don't necessarily need to have an American podcast hosting service to become part of the podcast index, which cannot be censored by any government ever. And yeah, if more people had access and resources, maybe we see these cheap little USB drives with, like I said, just open source programs downloaded on, so that people can join you on this awesome from any of the world.
Download Ubuntu Studio. It's a free operating system, and we can probably help people if you are trying to figure out how you can install this in Africa or in America, because Ubuntu does come from Africa. So they have it probably translated into your local language, even beyond English, if you want. You can do anything. But this jammy jellyfish is the newest version so far, and there's different versions that have been come out since then. But this comes with a complete suite of all the software you would ever need to make music, record your voice, put up a podcast of yourself talking with your friends, or a little lecture. You want to screen grab yourself looking at video and share it on YouTube, or Invidious, I think is the new. Let me find that.
Very cool.
Video.us. Is that right? I think I got this right. Is that right? Yeah, Invidious is the freedom alternative to YouTube, and there's a bunch of different nodes that are connected together, and it's easier to find. Check this out. I'm gonna type my own name.
Are there YouTube videos? Is it another way to watch YouTube, or it's just a competing platform?
Both. It's a free software client that scrapes all of YouTube, also has servers making new videos. You can upload your videos directly to this, or if you put them on YouTube, they end up getting scraped and backed up here. And you're able to get if you're looking for me, I'm not censored. It's the algorithm's different. So if you're typing, let's type in what's something that would be censored or something like that. Flat Earth. Let's just do that.
Censor. Okay.
Flat Earth. Boom. Proven. Not hidden. These are the most popular results, right? The ones people actually care about, not just the stuff. And then you get down here, why people still believe in the yeah. Okay. So they have the videos, the normie videos too, but obviously the more popular videos will go to the top. So it's a more interesting thing.
Oh, cool.
So free software is the answer. And yeah, I think we should get everybody on Ubuntu Studio or some sort of a variant, or even with your phone, because a lot of people don't have computers. And you can record with your phone. So get yourself recording, guys. I think that's important.
They could also send a file to somebody else who's in a country where podcast hosts, where you could host a podcast easier, and someone could host their podcast remotely. I know a lot of people who don't live with the, freedom of speech are looking for that option, hosting their podcasts in America, but recording it in Australia or Canada, somewhere where their freedom of speech has been compromised, and they could get, arrested for talking about certain things. So
right, maybe avoid YouTube and get on Odyssey directly if you're worried that you're saying stuff that is too truthful for commercialism. You don't think that you're going to get the AdSense money, then who cares? You'll find yourself getting crypto with Odyssey, which is a lot better anyway. And we're in a tight spot here. I think we got like 10 minutes, so I'm gonna try the last two things we've got. But new Hulu documentary reveals dark discoveries about Victoria's Secret. And you know this, obviously.
Oh,
What's a Victoria's Secret? I want to find this picture though. Because you have this.
Can I tell you guys a story?
Sure.
Do it, Mark.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Tell the story. Go ahead.
Enthusiastic. So when I was an Amazon delivery driver, I used to deliver packages in a very wealthy area in Connecticut, and I came across this mansion that it had a huge, I'm talking like billboard on the side of the highway, huge Victoria's Secret sign advertisement in their living room. So I'm thinking to myself, this must be like a big shot. But what was even stranger was in their front yard, as you drove up their weird, like spindly driveway, there was a giant statue of a dog, and not just any type of dog, but a Doberman Pinscher, like a really intimidating looking breed. And it's just this like sleek black obsidian statue, no, painting on it, no like definition of features, just like the silhouette of a Doberman Pinscher. So there's some weird, just firsthand account here as my days as a delivery driver, but there's some connected people in that area.
Absolutely. And, you can see like the before and after Epstein, period is marked also with Victoria's Secret. Seriously. Dove and Victoria's Secret, they have all these like, hyper beautiful women. I don't know if beautiful is even the right word. It's like women that have surgically implanted heels in their calves. It's just everything about
it. They've been scientifically turned up to like 11. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's so for a guy who's trying to clone himself and he's trying to, make a new race, right, of Epsteinian babies that are all from models that are at least 6 foot something. This is an easy way for him to qualify it. Anyway, we've got all these videos. This is a Hulu series coming out about this. Where are we at that there is an Epstein Hulu series? How many more Epstein? We've had a few Netflix shows about Epstein.
Netflix one, yeah.
How many more shows are we going to have about Epstein, you guys think?
And nothing happened.
Nothing actually.
That's the next question.
Could be like a real-time retcon from something that actually happened into a work of fiction. Like as it's becoming known that this is like a true story, they're like, this is our upcoming show. Actually, that's a script for a show, and it's like trying to retcon it into fantasy, like as it happens in real time.
So I've just come to the point now where like if my mom sends me anything, I just send her like photos from Hunter Biden's iPhone. You know what I mean? So that's a more general. Minor
greasy dog.
It depends on the picture and it depends on how annoyed I am. But I'm just saying if that's what you need to do. Or where are we at? Like when are people gonna get it? Or is it just that old people? Are we just quarantining a generation to have them die alone, afraid, naive, arrogant, and ignorant of all the facts until when they're gone, we're going to have to clean up the mess they've left behind? Are we really doing this again?
Well, I think when like energy prices hit a certain threshold, like people become truthers.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very possible right now to just kind of sleepwalk through life, but when when you don't have heat in the winter and stuff like that, you're going to be like, I think maybe Epstein and the Clintons did have something happening.
When's the projected?
When's
the projected cutoff date for boomers? Like, when are they supposed to all die off or be extinct or whatever you say?
When do I finally get my own space?
I don't know, but if that's our only like hope, then like we're just perpetuating the cycle, and we'll be those boomers one day. If you have to be able to save the boomers or you become the boomer, you know what I mean? It's like self.
Well, they say by 2020, by 2030, all boomers will be 65 or older. So the retirement of boomers will be insured. At least we'll have them out of the workforce by 2030 when Neuralink and transhumanism is in at least the first 4 years of full sway. So that's the beginning of it, right? 2030. And we've heard the 2030 agenda and everything. So is it
the first hippies?
Is it just that clear that we've got this middle class, a privileged generation to some extent who were divided over Vietnam, but also galvanized and replaced with the more lackey or more inept, generation saying, I think we all should get along because my mom and dad gave my brother and my sister and me all 3 different rooms in the house. So they thought, they should give that to everybody. Are they going to die off, or are they going to, just be quarantined? It looks like 65 is at the end. So is this just the beginning of a major cultural isolation between the two?
Well, I think that there's an opportunity for every nation, but the U.S. in particular, because we will be dealing with an aging population quite a bit soon. 2030 sounds like
retirement boom. Good job, Eminem.
No, I think that malls are going to become health malls where you're going to go in and get your dentures. You got to get, biopsy to make sure you can get a new heart. You got an arm that you need replacing, a couple of toes that need upgrading. Like, I think this kind of style of keep on keeping on is already in place. People get their knees replaced all of the time. I think that the more we grow in the ability to augment and continue on, the more people are going to want to do that. And that's where I see the aging population going into. If we can support them and get wisdom from them and learn that we, okay, don't do that from them, I think that we can do a lot and grow. But like you said, you've got to save the boomer or else you become the boomer.
Right. 2040, Florida, Judge Dredd runs the old folks home. That's what it's going to be, I think. Yeah.
Judges.
Yeah, there's whole generations of people that never got exposed to the truth. Everything, every piece, this is like post-book learning and into the radio and television era. They never had a chance. There was no way to expose anything true that would be detrimental to the state, to them. And that generation now is aging out, but they're aware of it. Like, they know Epstein jokes and stuff. They're thinking the same thing we're thinking. They're like, hopefully, this doesn't all collapse before I die. Like, it's sad. Like, they're hoping to time out and die before the world falls apart. And that's a horrible mindset to have, so we can do better than that ourselves, I'm sure.
Yes, we can. Yes,
this is just a subtle, think about it kind of thing. Freemasons have been really all about number 2076, right? It's not just Lodge 2076. It's the idea that we're going to get to a point in 2076. Isn't Cyberpunk 2077? 2076?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, that's a rat. Sounds like the game.
Yeah, so there's a tie in there. So this is the next generation that we're going to be retiring in probably, and is also the final culmination of the end of the boomer. Like, I don't know, there's got to be a better pun for that. But okay, radiation leak in Ukraine. Last story I want to try to bring up with you guys. Let me see if I can zoom in this horrible, old style website, which I respect very much, whoever decided to make it like this. Nuclear war with Russia. So radiation leak from Ukraine's nuclear plant will trigger NATO. Okay. Nuclear war with Russia seems now to be a deliberate planned action by the West. And this weekend, elected members of the 2 most influential Western governments tipped their hand with what they said nuclear war may be the only days away. As most readers are aware, much has been made of Zaporizhzhia's nuclear power plant in Ukraine. The plant was taken over by Russia very early in their special military operation, SMO, to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. The reason Russia took control of the plant early is that if there is any kind of radiation leak from the plant, local prevailing winds would not only create a deadly threat to Russian troops operating in Ukraine, the winds could also carry the radiation to Russia. As one might expect, Russia does not want either of these occurrences. So Russia, being a superpower against whom Ukraine stands no chance at all of prevailing, I get a little bias in this guy's article, but I'll take it, took control of the plant, continued allowing Ukrainian experts to run the plant, and all is well until about 2 weeks ago. About 2 weeks ago, Ukraine began firing artillery shells towards the plant. Ukraine claims that Russia has troops in the plant, and these troops are allegedly carrying out attacks against Ukraine. Russia denied carrying out attacks from the plant and demanded that Ukraine cease firing artillery at the plant. Ukraine has not stopped. More recently, Ukraine has begun publicly claiming it is Russia firing at its own people in the plant to create false flag excuse to use tactical nukes against Ukraine, allegedly. Russia has repeatedly and publicly decried the shellings of the plant and has repeatedly and publicly warned of radiation catastrophes if Ukraine continues firing at the plant. Russia raised the issue with the UN Security Council, and Russia asked the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, to come to the plant immediately to see for itself who is actually firing against the plant. So it's like throwing sticks. It's poking a crocodile, I think, and that's even in the shape of a crocodile, kind of. So what do you think? I mean, is that right, or am I missing something?
It sounds like it could be several things in that article, potentially. Do you think that it is the West trying to prod for a nuclear confrontation, or is it Russia going, no, it's not us, but it is us? Like,
it's not Russia. It could be the West. I mean, the West and the Ukraine are of the same cloth. It's not Russia. That's totally against their own, the way they've operated ever. They consider Ukraine to be the heart. Like, Moscow is a very recent capital of Russia. The real capital of Russia is Ukraine. It's birthplace.
They don't want to destroy Ukraine. And also, to destroy this thing would only benefit, I mean, it wouldn't benefit Ukraine, but it would benefit the West, who's removed from the Ukraine, using the Ukraine, sacrificing the Ukraine in order to get radiation into Russia, if they thought that was a real problem, or if they thought even just chemical gases or some sort of environmental concerns could happen.
One thing that I found really interesting, and you reminded me of this when you mentioned it shaped like a crocodile, is past guest on my show, Peter Shampoo, talked about Ukraine in proximity to Egypt and how there is a Moon River pyramid that's connected geographically. What he means by that is the Nile River is reflected in major river that runs through Kiev, right? So, and there's some science that he puts into place with like charting the geography to measure these things. But yeah, crocodiles.
You guys know, if you say Kiev or Kyiv, it's a political statement, right? So if you say Kiev, what you're saying is that you support Russia. If you say Kyiv, what you're saying is you support Ukraine. It's a really interesting New Orleans trick. You know?
Recently introduced, but yes, before all of this, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Kiev is how people who
my whole life it was pronounced Kiev. Now there's like this new cosmopolitan where we're like, oh, it's Kyiv. It's like
because they're trying to bring back.
Sounds like a food.
Half of Ukraine speaks Russian, right? And so even Zelensky, the president, speaks Russian. And the comedy and the most popular television has been kind of like Canadian Russia. They're not into Putin as much, but they are Russian. You know what I mean? And they're speaking Russian, and eventually they've said, hey, we need to really make Ukrainian the language of Ukraine, I would say. And so that's become, but they've even said that there's a schizophrenia to Servant of the People, because the show that near like the third season, they start really trying to speak more and more Ukrainian because it's election season. And you can tell it's like, if you're reading the subtitles, it switches over because it's amazing.
Yeah, that crocodile thing also relates to Sobek. Sobek was basically the god that was always switched with all the other gods that were involved in the Egyptian pantheon, and it has to do with the Nile.
Yeah, where do you find crocodiles in the Nile River? And like I said, these rivers, if you look, actually I could share my screen right now if you let.
Go right ahead. As I pull up a picture here of a crocodile god from Egypt, just as you get that ready.
That was just in a Marvel show too, and Moon Knight, that was a character, that crocodile god.
Nice.
Yeah, so the crocodile has to do with all the river systems. It's the Makara in the Hindu pantheon, and it's the mount. It's the thing that they ride on. It's basically the boat. It's the dragon. It's this water dragon that they ride on, and it has to do with all the water gods are all related, and they ride on the crocodile, this crocodile thing. And it's not just a crocodile; it's a chimera. It's that's why the crocodile can go on land and in the water and all this stuff. It's a very interesting character that, and it has to do with like baptisms and all that stuff. It's all that's why they use crocodile fat to baptize the Messiah, right? Is because the crocodile is associated with all this, and the waters that hold your memory, right? And it washes all the memory. When you die, you turn into the dust of the earth, and then the water rushes over the dust of the earth, pulls it into the river system and down into the ocean. The ocean is the great abyss, which carries all the memory of all humanity in it.
Dude, and also crocodile and gator different species, but still they're tasty. So I mean,
it tastes great.
Now I'm like,
you're tasting memory.
If you're in Louisiana or Florida, invite me. I want to go eat some. I want to eat some gator. I know.
I'd love to try some gator. No, that sounds good.
It's 88% meat. You know, I was just thinking there's not a lot of fat on it, but the fat is there and it counts. It's like cat
anything
meat
on a grill. Well, okay, don't compare it to a cat, but all right, okay, all right.
Yeah.
If an alligator had like big eyes and was cute like a cat, wouldn't you be more? Yeah, exactly.
All these lean animals are safe for me, man. I want 80% fat.
Yeah, exactly. I'm for it. I mean, but I would rather eat lizard people than eat insectoids, if that's where we're going. Anyway,
if I had that gun to my head,
if I had to, I don't always. If I do, all right.
That's
so,
when I go vegan.
guys, you survived. I'm really impressed. So,
Oh, this is great, man. Thank you.
Let me know where we can find a link to MrDouglas.com. Is that right?
That's the one. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Douglas. Yeah, hey
Pulling
man.
it up right now. Tell us a little bit about your next thing and what's next on your plate.
Pumping out Aesop's fables every day. Timeless wisdom is fun to do, especially when it has audio narratives underneath that at least make me chuckle. That's what I'm working on. I got a 360 camera. I'll be pumping out things like that soon.
Dude, and doing the Cardano thing, so we'll check that out. That's amazing.
Cardano 24/7. Definitely want to talk more about Cardano. That's awesome that you know that.
We'll get super deep. Yeah, I love everything about the Ada language, and the fact that they based it on Ada is cool.
Haskell, come on now. Yes. All right. Very cool. Very cool.
Venice Beach Dub Club. Let me see if I can get your thing right. Venice. There we go. And Venice Beach Dub Club Seth has a new album, a new single that's out that's super heavy. It's super good. I like what you got. So
available everywhere. And there's a music video on my YouTube page. All my links are in the link tree /VBDC. Follow me on Instagram. That's where I do most of my interaction. And I also do a daily podcast interactive show called Talkie Time at 6:30 California time every day. And check out the music and music videos. And it's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show. I look forward to this all week, man. Just great conversation with open-minded people.
Dude, and guys, check out my episode. If you're going to watch at least one, I'm just kidding. No, watch all of them. But I was just on Venice Beach Dub Club, and I thought it was a lot of fun. So
we had a great 90-minute talk about everything, AI, and a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, sweet. And definitely Real Truth Fairy from TikTok will be on that show soon. So we'll figure that out, and I'll try to plug that some more because she's got some good data. Divulgence podcast. The quiet Canadian who's humble and true, but you made some very good points along the way. So where do we find the Divulgence podcast?
You can find me on YouTube. I'm also on Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute. Trying to get on Rockfin, but if you can hit me up on YouTube, or if for audio, I'm on Spotify, Apple, all those general platforms. But Twitter, you can hit me up at Divulgence Pod. But yeah, this was great. It was great to meet all you guys. And if I was quiet, it's just because it was just great meeting you guys and in taking kind of learning your minds and who you are. And hopefully I can come back and we can connect again. But
absolutely, we'll definitely have you back. And I want to say again, thank you for sending me the Robert Maxwell book, because yeah, so I mean, the deep amount of data that this man has shared with me and the kinds of people that he's getting on his show. And yeah, I'm just going to toot your horn because I know you don't do it enough. Make sure people check out Divulgence podcast. It's a worthwhile show. And I love what you're trying to get the information out there. It's important. Giant, also, let me just say thank you again for being here. You always bring the Egyptian mythology right at the right moment. It's amazing. Should I link them to your Twitter? What do you want?
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter. I just come on here and talk a little bit with you guys. That's about all on that.
See what I'm saying? These are the best people in the world, right? All right, so this is Giant. Get up on Giant. He's got some interesting stuff.
Yeah,
he's got
Giant, hit me up. Let's come on. Let's chat more. All you guys. I'd like to chat with all you guys more, man. This was
For
great.
sure.
Like VBDC was. It's nice to chat with people with open minds, and I mean people that are freely thinking and are open to have a conversation and not just shut you down with some bullshit rhetoric or
Right? I can't wait for the September 11th Divulgence show.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be on the Divulgence's September 11th show, which is always fun. It's always good to have an anniversary to remember what we were doing that day.
I was there.
All right,
for another time.
Oh,
you should consider. Hey, if Divulgence, I'll hook you guys up. If you want to tell that story on the September 11th thing, it might be a worthwhile thing. And
yeah, let's get you on the show. Let's chat. Like I said, all you guys, let's chat. If VBDC, if you were there, man, I'd love to maybe get you on the anniversary show and tell your story. Yeah.
I'll wear my 9/11 with an inside job shirt like I do every 9/11.
Remember in 2001, all of those American flag shirts that looked like, just really cheaply made. I mean, I want to buy a crate of those because I feel like right now they're about to come back into fashion. That's what we need. It's just freedom and kittens, All right, guys, it was wonderful. We'll see you next time. Take care tomorrow. Peace.